some people get to be in here.
Hey, Chris, do we have an extra hundred?
What's that?
California.
Yeah. For your iPad?
Yes.
Here's one.
Oh, you got one down
Yeah.
there? Okay. That'll work. Thank you.
Good evening, happy New Year, welcome all of you here to, January meeting, 2021. Concord City Council, thank you for being here. We are following strict, COVID protocol. Would ask you to please keep your face covering, on, throughout the entire meeting. Remain social distance if you would, please. And then once you finish your business here with the city, just like to ask you to politely, depart. That way we can, limit the capacity in the room. Directly appreciate that. Thank you very much. At this time, we are going to have our invitation, followed by the pledge of allegiance. And our invitation was written by, Pastor Helen Leslie and will be delivered tonight by Mayor Pro Tem, Kyle Haynes. So if you would please stand.
Please bow your heads. Father, we thank you for a brand new start this brand new year, 2021. We want to say thank you for giving us life, health, strength, family, friends, and community in the midst of these trying times. As we assemble here this evening, we ask for your guidance, direction, and wisdom for our mayor, city council members, and city manager as they navigate the coming year. Give them strength as they lead, along with their co-workers, to help make the city of Conover a great place to work, live, and raise a family. We pray for the safety and protection of our police officers and first responders. Help our nation, O God, during this time of struggle. Intervene with divine providence. Help us all to be a part of the solution, willing to add to and never take away. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, council. Hope everyone had a great holiday, a little time off. You'll see your family some. It was a lot different this year, but I hope you were able to do that and like stay healthy. We have received, we have two consent items. Item one is approval of minutes. Item two is resolution 2-21 for surplus property. We will take those two together unless someone that would like to speak about any of these individually.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes and the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Wolver, I appreciate that. Second, Mr. Bill, any further discussion, questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion has carried. Item three is the comments from our visitors and guests. We do have several public hearings tonight, but if you would like to speak to your city council about something that you would like addressed or a comment that you would like to make, now's the time to do that. But again, if we're talking about any of the public hearings, if you would please, there'll be a public comment period during those individual agenda items. But if you're here, you'd like to address your city council, this is the time to do it. You just keep your comments, please, somewhat brief for the courtesy of all those here. Come forward, state your name and address for the public record. We'd love to hear from you at this time. Anyone? would like to join? If not, I'll move we close. Thank you, Mr. Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Eckert, Mr. Haynes. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion has carried. At this time, we'd like to do a recognition. So, council, if you'll just join me in front of the lectern, I appreciate it.
Mayor, members of council, while you're coming forward, this is a reminder, one of the things that happened after 9/11 was the establishment of Homeland Security. And after that, we had the 9/11 Study Commission. Several things came forward out of that. One of the most prominent things is, we probably don't celebrate enough, is that our public works are listed as first responders. We had executive order directive in 2003, and it was codified by the U.S. Congress a couple of years later. So we have some gentlemen here we'd like to recognize tonight, and I'll turn it over to David to give that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. I appreciate it. Could, Mr. Joe Cassell, Bill Burback, and TJ Miller, please come up front. We greatly appreciate it. I tell you, it's a great honor the city council gets to do this tonight. We've always said, over and over again, that, our city team members go above and beyond what's ever asked of them for our citizens. And this is a great example. These gentlemen here were, going about their duties and doing it well, saw an opportunity, really emergency opportunity to help a fellow citizen, and didn't even think twice and jumped in and helped them. So I want to read the citation here, and then we'd like to present an award of bravery to each one of these gentlemen. We greatly appreciate it. On the evening of November 23rd, 2020, City of Conover employees Jody Self, Bill Burback, Thomas TJ Miller were pulling additional duties after working a full day at their normal assignments. As part of their leaf collection crew, while en route, they noticed what they thought was dust, and as they got closer, they saw people standing outside a home in panic. They soon realized it was smoke coming from inside the garage at a neighboring property. Jody and Bill grabbed fire extinguishers while TJ made entry into the garage and discovered a riding lawnmower on fire. He pulled it to the edge of the driveway, away from the residents, while Jody and Bill extinguished the fire. Thankfully, no injuries occurred and no additional property damage. Tonight, on behalf of our city council, I would like to present the Distinguished Service Medal to Jody Self, Bill Burback, and TJ Miller for going above and beyond what was called in the call of duty in recognition of their bravery and service to the citizens of Conroe. Gentlemen, we greatly appreciate what you've done, and thank you for being on our team. At this time, Mayor Pro Tem Colin Hayden would like to present the award.
Jody, on behalf of the city council, I'm going to show everybody what we have. I want to present this medal to you. Bill, TJ, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate that. Item 5 is a contract between Western Piedmont Council of Governments and City of Conover regarding GIS mapping services. And Allison, thank you for being here tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's an honor to be here before you. The contract that's before you is a GIS contract, and it is part of a NPDES. So let me tell you what that means. National Pollutant Elimination System. I think I have that right. So what that all means is that the state of North Carolina, DEQ, is requiring the city of Conover to map all of their stormwater conveyances. So your piping, your open channels, your catch basins, flow direction, and all of those requirements have been stepped up from years past. The state of North Carolina was audited by Environmental Protection, and upon that, they began to audit the different municipalities in the state. And so while you're seeing an increase in the requirements for mapping, Conover, I will say, has done a very good job with what they currently have. However, to get you to where you need to be to meet those requirements for your NPDES permit, that's why this contract is being requested this evening. The contract amount is $29,000 over the course of 5 years. And the reason why it's 5 years is twofold. One is that with an NPDES permit, you have 5 years to complete your mapping in totality. They want you to do a third of it within years 3, 4, and 5. We have a number of municipalities that are participating in this mapping service. And so in order to be able to take care of everybody within that 5-year period, we felt comfortable with a 5-year contract and spreading it out so we can make sure that we meet those requirements for all these municipalities. So with that being said, if I'll entertain any questions the council may have.
Allison, how long will this map be good for? And how often would it need to be updated?
Okay, so the mapping is actually a living document. Okay, think of it in the context of like a land use plan, zoning ordinance, living document. As you have development, there will be things that need to be mapped, such as, you have a driveway cut go in, you're gonna have a culvert or a pipe go under the road. You may have a stormwater conveyance measure, which would be like a BMP, rain garden, those kind of measures. You might have outfall pipes, given the topography. So what our goal is with this is to get you where you need to be by the end of 5 years with everything updated, so that when you hit that 5-year mark and we start working on that new NPDES permit, you're really where you need to be, and all you have to do is just add to it as development occurs. And the other thing that goes along with this contract is that we are putting together a web-based application for you. And so your workers will be able to stand out in the field with an iPhone or device and be able to see where your outfalls are, your inlets, your pipe structures, all of those things that are included within the contract.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes,
Good
sir.
question, Mr. Mayor. Anybody else have any questions for Allison?
This can't be done in-house without GIS?
What, in talking with Public Works staff, they've done a very good job with where they are right now. The capacity or the capabilities that we have with our enterprise system is gonna help out to make this a quicker process. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the bar has been increased, and you weren't required to do mapping for 12-inch pipes in industrial areas previously. Now that's a requirement. You have quite a bit of industrial property, and therefore getting back in there and taking the staff time to do that is gonna be cumbersome going on those properties, because there are some topo issues and things of that nature. And so, that's,
Good question, that answer your.
So will you be doing the actual work, or will our guys be doing the measurements?
That we will.
And
Yeah, we'll have a GIS, tech or either analyst, out in the field. They'll have GPS handheld units, and they'll be taking, all the measurements, all, inputting all the information, so that whenever we get to the end of the project, you'll have a full dictionary of everything you have in the ground, or the flow directions on the ground.
So basically, tracking process. Any other questions or concerns?
just a comment, and this is another example where the Fed goes to the state, pushes it down to the lowest level, the municipalities, for us to fund it. That, our state parents and our Fed parents want this done, they can help chip in.
We'll see.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we entertain that contract.
Move we approve the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Second, Mr. Bill. Any further, discussion needed or questions for Ms. Allen? If not, all in favor say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion is carried. Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Ordinance 121. Ms. Blake. Good evening. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ordinance 121 amends the 2020-21 budget ordinance by appropriating $5,818 general fund balance and increases contracted services in the street department for the Western Piedmont Council of Governments to map and update the city's stormwater infrastructure for the stormwater management plan that Allison just discussed. This is the first of 5 annual installments for a total cost of $29,090. This will get us through the fiscal year of our current budget, and then going forward, we will put this in our original budget document, so we won't be coming back to you every year asking you for the money.
Gotcha.
It'll go in the budget ordinance.
Thank you. All right, questions for Ms. Sleepy? This is your call for the first year, you'll build it in, the budget, forthcoming. We approve ordinance 121. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you, Mr. Bill. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 7 is a draft, City of Conroe ADA transition plan, written. Good evening, Mr. Jones. How are you, sir? Welcome forward. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Today we're going to be just talking about the ADA transition plan. And Avery, which is what we call it also, will present the draft ADA transition plan. We have completed a full inventory of housing facilities and pedestrian amenities. This document identifies ADA standards and items that need to be corrected to comply with the standards. This plan is an unfunded mandate that is not necessary to comply with the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act. Municipalities are now required to have a transition plan. Municipalities missing these plans can miss out on future federal and state funding as well as state liability concerns. Public Works will be given a viewer after they do all the inventory to access to an ArcGIS application that shows the entire pedestrian network inventory. This is just a draft plan, which must have a 30-day public comment period before adoption, which with about 28 days between this council meeting and the next council meeting, so it'll probably be done in March. This is a living document. Avery will be working with Public Works to implement the plan and document any changes, including items that Public Works may consider technically infeasible. Some items listed within the plan and pedestrian application may have those solutions that will work better than what is currently suggested. And now,
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for council. Thank you, council, for having me. Do you have my presentation? I will start with just saying, I don't want this document to overwhelm you in any way, shape, or form. There are a lot of standards with the ADA.
Sure.
And it covers everything from curb ramps to bus stops. So, I really feel like Conover is really ahead of the curve with this plan. So, I can assure you that there's not a municipality out there that is fully in compliance with ADA. It's just, you guys have the document that you need. All right. Actually, this one. Okay, so kind of back to what Terry was saying, this is a civil rights law and it prohibits discrimination against those disabilities. That what applies to you is Title II of the Act, so that applies directly to local governments. It is an unfunded mandate, however, I'm kind of being told that federal funds may be withheld without this transition plan. And this could also extend to other state grants and other funding opportunities. I also think that with this plan in place, you're gonna have more options for maybe different pots of funding within DOT. So this will be good. The Department of Justice have started doing more audits. So of course, you know, if you receive a complaint or something, you could be audited by the Department of Justice. So this kind of protects you from liabilities. Really, Department of Justice wants to see that you're trying. So with this plan in place, you know, it doesn't really specify a time frame that you have to fulfill. They just want to see that you're trying and that you have designated at least a small percentage of your budget. And of course, you know, you have citizens with disabilities. So I'm going to kind of get into the disability analysis that we did. So the census recognizes 6 disability types, and that is hearing difficulty, vision difficulty, cognitive, ambulatory, self-care, and independent living difficulties. So we kind of broke that down with your different census tracts to kind of see where your disabled populations are living and where your facilities and sidewalks fall within that. So we determined this. We basically compared it to the county average. So if you had any disability types exceeding the county averages, that kind of went as a point towards, you know, each specific census tract. So right now we're just going to mainly look at the moderate and the high ones. So moderate is a census tract with 3 or 4 types exceeding the county disability averages, and a high concentration tract is a tract with 4 or more types exceeding the county disability averages. So this is kind of a hard chart to see, but the chart on the left actually has 11 facilities that are within a moderate concentrated tract. So if you'll remember, that is very marked. The chart on the right is your sidewalk, your pedestrian amenities. So you actually have 5.4 miles within a high concentrated census tract, and that is census tract 101.01. And you have 10.4 miles in a moderate census tract 102.02, and then 2.4 miles in census tract 113, which is also moderate. So if you'll look, the majority of that is going to be in census tract 102.02 and 101.02. So basically, how I put together the plan was I inventoried 21 facilities owned by you and also open to the public. I inventoried 28 sidewalk miles owned by you. I used, as far as the methodology goes, I used this survey that was actually created from the 2010 ADA Standards for Accessible Design. So I did a slightly modified version, and those standards were adopted by the ADA National Network. So you can feel confident in those standards. And if you would like, if you have more questions, we can always click the link and look at the survey, but that's what I based the methodology off of. The pedestrian right-of-way, like I said earlier, it covers a lot. It actually covered sidewalks, curb ramps, driveway cuts, intersections, railroad crossings, bus stops, crosswalks, and pedestrian islands. The standards I used for that were the proposed ProWag technical ADA standards from the U.S. Access Board. And I spoke with the U.S. Access Board specialist about those standards, and she recommended those. So, it's kind of hard to put everything within the pedestrian right-of-way in the plan. So we have actually developed an in-the-field application for public works use. So I went through and documented everything that you saw, that you see within the pedestrian right-of-way. I documented it in the application and, took an additional GPS unit for accuracy. So it should all be in there. And so this is just the facility methodology. I broke everything down by high, moderate, and low priority. High priority relates to immediate safety hazards or access to a facility. So if you can't actually get to the facility from your parking spot, then, the rest of the standards kind of become useless. A lot of what you would see in the plan with high priority are actually your door pressures. So thankfully it's an easy fix, but they don't have a set standard for exterior door pressures, but interior door pressures is 5 pounds or less. It's a recommended for exterior 10 pounds or less, and a 5-second closure time. So moderate priority, of course, that's relating to less severe safety hazards or access to goods and services and public restrooms. Low priority, this is just going to be your non-compliant issues that aren't necessarily posing an immediate safety threat. For the low, I normally did, like if something was 5 inches or less out of compliance, I normally just put that in the low. I also have a not applicable or technically infeasible section. You are allowed to have technically infeasible items within these transition plans. So sometimes you're going to have something that won't comply with standards, but it's going to cause the city an undue financial burden. Try to fix that, or there's really just not a good workaround. You document that, you can list it as technically feasible. Or if your facility is built prior to, I believe, March 15th of 2012, it's kind of a different set of standards you're working with. So sometimes you come across a standard that's not applicable to a facility that was built prior to March 15th of 2012. I also listed just my recommendations. I separated my recommendations from the standard. So there are some things that there wasn't a standard for, but I thought, well, this could still be something they would like to know. So I separated that into high, moderate, low recommendations, and that is completely up to you as to whether, you decide to deal with those. This is just, not to pick on Fire Station 1, they were great, but this is just an example of the layout that I used. So as you can see, you have the high, moderate, low priority. This only had 2 low recommendations, technically feasible section, and then just a few pictures. This is the layout that I use for parking lots. So it's still a similar layout with pictures. Your parks and your play areas, that's a little different scoring there. So the ADA National Network actually does not have a good scoring methodology for parks. They would rather you just tackle one whole play area at a time and focus on it, as opposed to like picking out high priorities from all of your different play areas. Okay, so now for the pedestrian amenities and stuff. Again, I based my methodology off of the proposed ProWay standards. So your priority 1, those are the high items, and those are actually marked red in the application that Public Works is going to have access to. Again, this is anything considered to be an immediate safety hazard. And just an example of this is if you come to a curb ramp that's leading a pedestrian into a roadway without a detectable warning, that's automatically considered high priority according to U.S. Access Board. Just because you need that for visually impaired pedestrians, so they know. So priority 2, moderate. Again, that's less severe, but still hazardous safety issues according to standards. An example of this is going to be your cross slopes. So U.S. Access Board asked for it to be 2% or less. So that's going to be perpendicular to the pedestrian path of travel. So if it's in like that 5 to 10% range, what I had marked as moderate. So, let's see. Low is gonna be, of course, anything that's non-compliant, but obviously not an immediate safety hazard. So, that is gonna include even like cross slopes from 2 to 5%. And you see just a picture of a cracked sidewalk. That's not really an immediate safety hazard. This is also gonna have a technically infeasible section or not applicable. It's just gonna be on the application. It also needs documentation. Okay, here's an example, that I did include in the plan. I just pulled out specific problem areas that I included in the transition plan. This is Thornburg and your I-40 East ramp. And now it was brought to my attention that, you're gonna have to work with DOT a lot for, say, this one, which is good because they need to know what's out there and what's on the ground, what's unsafe. So I feel like if you have, say, this project in an adopted plan, it's gonna be so much easier to submit a project like that later on. So what I did was I used drone pictures of the actual problem area, and then you use 3D modeling to kind of show the solution, the fix to that, a little write-up. So that's how I did the problem areas. These were the trusty tools. That was just an electronic level and by tape measure and iPad. I'm sure a lot of you saw me out in the field and probably thought I was a big weirdo, but it was nice. We used ArcGIS online for the application. And then top right is for the drill pictures I gave. Okay, so this is just a little checklist, to-do list. You guys have already identified who's responsible for the plan development. You've already established a complaint procedure. I think that was way back in June before the whole process started. You have your standards set, ready to go. And you have developed your self-evaluation that includes the necessary physical changes and the prioritization of the physical changes. So now, you just have to, this is ongoing, identify the official responsible for documenting changes and infeasible items. You really need to engage the community, so I'm hoping that maybe we can look to like advocacy groups for disabled persons. Schedule physical changes and maintain documentation, and make the self-evaluation and transition plan documents available to the public. So when we open this up for public comment, I will go ahead and send you guys the link tomorrow to post, on your website. You can decide if you want to post it to your Facebook. So this is just one of the potential plan changes. Before we adopt it, I rewalked Thornburg, and I decided I actually don't think I like this suggestion. Oh, I forgot to mention, so I'm not an engineer. So I ran all of my suggested changes by the Division 12 DOT engineer. So Division 12, is over Tioga County. And so everything that you're gonna see in this document, as far as the pedestrian right-of-way section goes, has been approved, but we still suggest that, if you decide to actually tackle these improvements, that you run it by your engineer. My suggested improvement at first was a high-vis crosswalk across Thornburg, but when you get out there, there is a blind curve on either side, and the speed limit is pretty high there. So I don't think that I would actually encourage anyone to cross. So that's just saying this, that this might be a potential change that you'll see before the adoption. I think I'm gonna get rid of that crossing. It would be safer to have them cross at the signalized intersection. Okay, I'm not gonna go over this, I promise. This is just in case you had questions about any of the standards. As I said, they can get really kind of overwhelming and nitpicky. So I just wanted to show people, here are the standards for curb ramps, crosswalks, driveway cuts, pedestrian islands, railroad crossings, pedestrian signals, transit stops, and sidewalks. If anyone has any questions about any of the standards, I'm happy to go over any of it.
Well, Avery, we're certainly gonna be a much better city whenever you finish.
Like I said, you're good to begin with.
Question for you,
Yes,
I assume that a lot of this documentation put together will help us, apply for grant funding.
Mhm.
Will you help with that, or how does that work?
Yeah, certainly, especially as long as I'm involved. You know, it's my goal to hopefully help with the STI projects when you submit that for the, like transportation, NPO. And DOT has like spot funding that you can use for problem intersections. Now, the pool of funding is a little bit smaller for DOT when it comes to pedestrian projects. But if you are submitting a road project and you have it in an adopted plan that, hey, you want these changes, the DOT will cover that 100%.
Perfect.
But now if it is just a pedestrian project, then I think it's an 80-20, it's a 20 match for you guys.
And, one other question.
Yes.
One particular area, there may be more, that I know of, one particular area, we have, a citizen that's visually impaired. She uses the cane, et cetera. And where she goes for, daily care, she walks from her home to a facility. And that facility requires her to cross a fairly busy road.
Mhm.
Will you go into, how does that work?
Are you talking about at YMCA, at
Yes,
Mayville Church?
yes.
Yeah, I included that one in the plan as well,
Okay.
as a suggested crossing.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Yeah, so basically, this is a living document. So anytime that you see another issue maybe pop up,
Okay.
just let me know about it. And, you know, we can work to get that in the plan.
After the one that just
Yeah.
popped in my.
Yeah, don't worry, that one is in there. Yeah, Great.
Great job. Any questions for us?
I got one.
yes.
Any state maintained road, if any striping needs to be done on that road, is it up to the state to stripe?
Well, yeah, I do believe if it's state maintained, it would have to be the
So
state.
we got quite a few of them that you showed.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying, you're definitely gonna have to work with DOT on it, which hopefully I can help some with that, because I do have some relationships with Division 12 DOT. Yeah.
Nice job. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Avery. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, David.
Item 8 is the final plat, for Flowers Family Subdivision. Welcome, Ms. Klein. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the city council, members of the public. We have a subdivision request from the Flowers family. They've joined us via WebEx. That's who's been sitting there. What they would like to do is cut off a piece of property that they own off of Wall Street, provide it to a family member for their homestead. So in our subdivision ordinance, one way to do that is to do sort of like a family-style subdivision. They would dedicate the area in blue as right of way, and at a future date, it could be improved to a city standard to become a city street. At this time, though, it would only just be for a single-family use. We're asking for your support for that, which would just be through a motion to approve or deny.
Was this something that went through the planning board?
It did, and they supported it, yeah.
Okay, okay. Any questions for Ms. Klein?
Is this inside or outside city limits?
City limits, yes, sir. Yes.
Any questions for Ms. Klein?
How long would that driveway, would that be a driveway?
It'd be a driveway.
How long is that?
I think it's about 200 feet approximately.
Oh, the 3.5 acres is only 200 feet of frontage.
It has sufficient frontage, but it's just getting them out to the road. So the family lives all through that area there, and they have a lot of parcels of land around there. Not the ones fronting on Herman side, but just the areas to the right in that slot.
How many parcels would this serve?
It's just going to serve this one.
Just the one?
Yeah.
How many could it serve?
Well, the folks who have a house to the right could also use it, but right now they're using another access point. Yeah. There's a road in there now, a driveway in there now.
If I may, I was looking on the plan, I believe it added almost 700 feet from Oh, I beg your pardon, yeah, from Hermanside Road to the property in question.
Any other questions, Mr. Klein? The final plat for approval?
Move we approve the final plat.
Second. Thank you. Second, Mr. Bill. Any further questions or discussions about this? All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion has carried. Flowers family, thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Thank you very much.
Item 9 is a public hearing. Mr. Millar, you and Mr. Klein, we welcome you this evening. Talking about our data campus / multi-jurisdiction park.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council, again, members of the public. The Catawba County Economic Development Corporation manages this parcel on behalf of the multi-jurisdiction partners. It's 55 acres. It's zoned COI, which is Campus Office Institutional, and the request is to change that to be exclusive manufacturing EM1. Now, EM1 manufacturing is a district established to be exclusively used for manufacturing, warehousing, and industrial type uses. The establishment of this district recognizes that necessity of providing and maintaining manufacturing areas which are protected from intrusion of other incompatible uses that may work against manufacturing in this case. It is not intended to permit in this district any use which is inherently obnoxious to urban areas, including because of noise, odor, smoke, light, dust, or the use of dangerous materials. So it's good to remember that. The site, of course, is accessed from Northern Drive, although its property address is Liber Drive to the north. And that's the request.
Thank you, Mr. Klein, I appreciate it. Mr. Millar, would you like to speak, sir? Well,
Certainly would. Thank you. Well, glad to be here before you tonight, Mr. Mayor, or members of the council. It's a pleasure to come before you and talk about economic development, the opportunities in all the years that I've worked with you in trying to establish great opportunities for those next developments that we see down the pike. For 7 years now, we've marketed the North Carolina Data Campus as a joint multi-jurisdictional partnership with the City of Hickory, Catawba County, Town of Catawba, and the Town of Maiden toward those data center opportunities, some of which we still see as viable opportunities. What we have realized during that period of time is that the tendency of data centers over the last 5 or 7 years has been for them to be large in scale and size. And so many of the opportunities that we have uncovered have not been able to fit within the 55 acres, which is the real meat of this parcel and that which is already graded. And so that's one of the shortcomings of this site. So we've continued to market that to opportunities that, and we think there will still be opportunities. Certainly COVID and changes that have taken place in data centers are going to provide continued opportunities, particularly for some of those bigger site-oriented opportunities. That's one of the reasons behind the discussion between the multi-jurisdictional partners to enlarge the scope of this opportunity to include other high-value, high-scale opportunities that could take advantage of the same types of uses, the same types of infrastructure that are available to data centers. For example, large electrical systems and large users. So because there's a substation on site, there's certainly an opportunity. It's just like for a rail site. You don't want to market a rail site to a non-rail use. It's not really appropriate to use up a good rail site for a non-rail use. This is a very high infrastructure oriented site with that substation on hand and all of your electrical or water and sewer availability to that site. And so we want to widen the scope of this opportunity, and I haven't got one of these Greg Connor masks on yet. I will soon. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This one keeps coming down. Nevertheless, But, yeah, but, so what we're trying to do is really keep the focus on those large, opportunities, the big, higher end, higher investment, higher infrastructure and utility types of uses that can go on the site. And we've marketed, we've had some success marketing it, but one of the shortcomings of this is that the, campus office institutional zoning that exists specifically for this site right now. For those other uses that we've uncovered, when we go out there and we explain, well, it would have to be rezoned, and we go through this process of rezoning, and, you go through the planning board, and then you go through the city council, and then, it comes forward. And then there's an additional step that has to go through for each of the, development opportunities. So it basically goes through that twice. We explain that to them, and they basically say, we may just go to another site that's, more ready for this opportunity. You may have read about American Fujifilm, and that's a Japanese printing company that we just announced on December 22nd on a site in Tribune Corporate Center in Hickory. We initially showed this site, we showed the Tribune site, and we showed a site in Newton. Of course, we try and provide multiple opportunities for those sites that we've uncovered, or for those projects that we've uncovered. And so we showed these three. This one got kicked out partially because of that rezoning issue. And so for that reason, I'm encouraging you all to consider the rezoning to basically broaden the scope of the opportunities that will be available to go on this site. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
Laura, speaking of the zoning, and I guess the Tribune is already zoned
Correct.
the same as this, the same as what's being referenced.
It's, I'm going to say exclusive manufacturing, yes.
Thank you, Laura, appreciate it. This is a public hearing. We would like to hear from anyone for or against this particular zoning. This is the zoning regarding the MJP Partners. If you're here on behalf of that particular subject, if you'd like to come forward, state your name and address for the public record, we can take your comment at this time.
Mayor, if I could, we received a comment that I wanted, it is related to this topic. I want to make sure that you heard something about it. Ms. Jamie Sight-Sigmund presented a letter she sent by email earlier today, and it was received. I think she's here. She still may wish to speak to it, but I want to let, just by commenting on that, we weren't taking these lightly. We wanted to put them in the record, and she feels that it's, the change of zoning will be out of character with the original intent of that area. In a summary fashion, she got other words and other comments in here, but she might be here to make them herself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Davis, for your comment. Anyone else like to speak?
Mayor, members of council, I will maintain the list that has been compiled by Mr. Taylor outside of our guests that are outside waiting to speak. And tonight we do have Ms. Jamie Sight-Sigmund along with her daughters Kathy McConnell and Janice Well. Ms. Sigmund is aged, and so she will have them with her to assist you. If you're ready.
Sure.
Yeah, Ms. Jamie, please. And we'll go down the whole list. We have everyone.
Don't stop screaming, stop frozen. Up here. Leave me here.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening, Ms. Smith.
Good evening. This is Ms. Sigmund. You can sit right here.
Sorry. Hi, Ms. Sigmund.
I am Kathy McConnell, her daughter.
And your address was public record?
Excuse me?
Your home address was public record?
4096 Herman South Road, Conover. And in regard to the letter that she sent, I will have to read it to you.
Okay.
And if you would like a copy of it, I'd be glad to give you one.
Yes, sir. Be great, thank you. Thank you very much.
So this is addressed to the Conover City Council. In regards to the proposed zoning map amendments, this property, the COI, as well as R 2008, R 2009, these all connect with Ms. Sigmund's property. I believe that the rezoning of both properties in the surrounding area to an EM1 district is unnecessary and potentially harmful. Those lands have historic and ancestral value found in a centuries-old stagecoach road, a portion of which resides on these two properties, and having been settled by our forefathers in the 1700s as they gave thanks to God for their fortune. These properties and surrounding lands affected by these amendments have been rezoned into different categories many times. In 1999, the NC Planning Study Conceptual Master Plan for Conover and Catawba County was for the residential construction of over 300 new homes and roads, and this included Ms. Sigmund's property. Since this, many plans have been considered for these and the adjoining properties, and eventually the COI district came about, and the resorting plan, Dave Siller, led to the closure of our right-of-way into our properties, known as the Fanny Abernathy Road. Now that this too has had lackluster success, the next plan is to rezone for exclusive manufacturing. But as it stands, Catawba County already has many manufacturing jobs, more than can be filled. And the surrounding inhabitants don't wish to see the inevitable degradation of land that is ancestral and historical. I realize that investors such as Mr. Andy Wells desire a return on those same investments and will continue to zone and rezone until all the properties impacted are as full as their pockets, at the expense of the descendants who, despite this, know that the Lord's plan for this land will prevail over any man's. To reiterate as clearly as possible, I, Janie Sapp Sigmund, oppose the proposed zoning map amendments R 2008 and 2009. Respectfully, Ms. Sigmund.
Thank you for reading that. Ms. Sigmund, thank you.
Ms. Sigmund may have some comments.
I am against the rezoning. It will ruin all of the plans that I believe God made with our forefathers when they came in here in the 1700s. And I believe as they worshiped on that hill that is mine down there now and is God's, they worshiped and God made on there as they lived in their wagons till they got homes built. And I believe they made covenants with God. And all these years, there has been resistance to God bringing forth the covenants and the promises that He made to their forefathers. And God says to leave an inheritance to your forefathers, to your children and your children's children. And that has what is been done, and that is what I have planned to do. And I am against this rezoning because it's not what they're claiming. I have been tricked and lied to for 10 years or more over that property and trying to get in there to that property. And it's time something is made a change to.
Thank you, Chief. And I would like to add, as far as the manufacturing, I work in manufacturing. The company I work for can't find enough employees. Our schedule is going to change. I need to work 4 12-hour days because we can't have enough people. So I see no reason for more manufacturing in this area, not at this time. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you if you want.
And if any of you have any belief that God is still alive, I would ask you to look into it and see how, since my road was closed up and I had promises for years to be able to go into that property, and anytime we went to look about it, they turned us down. I think it's time we can go back into our property like other people do. Now, that's what I've got to say. And I am against the rezoning. This is not what it's pretending to be.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I appreciate you, being here with her and your comments.
Thank you for listening to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, members of council, our next guest for the public hearing is Lynn Starr, 1714 North Congress Street, Conway.
This big property, getting back to it, is it a right of way issue, I said?
There was, access, at some point, there was no legal access to that property, there from the previous property owner. That was an issue that was discussed.
Is that anything that, I know we can resolve it tonight, is there any,
Not across that property. The access is on the driveway.
Her property, well, this is property.
Yes, if you see the sign that says R20 Catawba County, the property is 3 lots. Again,
Oh, okay.
just north of that, you see there's 3 lots?
Yeah, it comes off.
Yeah,
It
so
comes off.
it's only yellow touches it at one point. So it's not impacted.
So she can't come on home to get to her property?
She can't just cross that.
She was her.
That's across the creek, Forest Creek.
Right.
But it's not public access to the property. There was no public access to it.
So if she wanted to cross that property that we're talking about, then she's trespassing?
That'd be correct. But there's no access there to it. Lynn?
Thank you. I choose not to speak on this matter.
I'm sorry, what?
I choose not to speak on this matter.
Okay.
Please go down to the next.
There's Michelle Shelley.
No. Sure. So you can go.
Here, you spoke. I'm sorry.
I did.
Mayor, members of council, Matthew Farah, 3595 Smithfield Drive, Northwest.
Well, sir, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brian. So, just as a totality on this, obviously on 3595 Smithfield Drive, I've been a resident of the city of Conway for almost 10 years now, and I have no intention of going anywhere anytime soon. So with this being a process, you know, if it happens to take place, you know, years from now, it's still gonna affect me. I hear this fellow talking about opportunities, and I'm all about that. Like, I love to see this place grow, like, you know, raise my family here, et cetera. The issue is that you know, I worked in a manufacturing job before and still do. I just, with that going in behind my property, that's huge. Myself, along with a lot of the other people in the area, invest a lot of money in our properties. So with the industrial facility potentially going in behind my property, it's gonna devalue my property significantly. Just trying to wonder where, you know, the balance is on this. I think that if you look into it, I guess the ordinance for rezoning a residential area into a manufacturing is pretty clear, and that's why you don't do it. And to rezone, to annex and then subsequently rezone the property behind mine, along with all these other ones, would be completely going against the reason why we have this ordinance in the city of Concord to begin with. You'd be directly affecting a lot of residents. You know, Highway 16 is gonna be pretty dangerous. I've seen a lot of my neighbors get rear-ended there, along with everybody else. You know, people don't pay attention. You jam up an industrial facility into that area, it's gonna make congestion 10 times worse, if not more.
Let me ask you a question, sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
We're talking about the multi-jurisdiction part.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to?
So this thing,
Okay,
it's all gonna be tied into one big thing anyways.
yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, so with it, with that coming up on the backside of that, you know, it's gonna be annexed and then you potentially rezone. Well, you're gonna be rezoning all the other properties in behind Smithfield Drive, that directly affects me as well. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just speaking in the totality of it, you know, I'm all for opportunities in City Common. I love to see this place grow. There's just more stuff we can do. The issue is that I have with, potentially like an industrial manufacturing facility being put in behind my property and all these other properties. Is the same reason why here in City Common we have that ordinance to deal with, is why we don't do it. And the devaluation of our properties therefore after, you know. I just want to know, like, are these fellows coming in that want to propose this plan, or are they going to pay for the offset that their opportunity is going to devalue our property? Are they going to split the bill with us? Are they going to cover that? I highly doubt that. You know, I put a $20,000 garage in my backyard and fenced in the remainder of my property. It wasn't cheap. I just got my house appraised for $179,000. And then refinance it. What's an industrial facility going to do to that? I won't be upside down in my house as long, because I'm not going to do it stuff. I'm going to have to cut it completely. So, I mean, I hate to say that I directly oppose it, but I do. I think that there's probably another opportunity that could take place, like maybe a residential area behind that, that particular area along that one. That could be more beneficial to the city, cause more people to come live here. This is a great place to live. Maybe we just need more space to move these people in. I don't know. But, you know, working in a manufacturing facility, I don't want that behind my house, and I don't think you would either, if it was yours in question here. That's really all I got on this.
You say the street you live on again, sir?
Smithfield Drive.
You're on Smithfield, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And then all this is kind of blessed up to the back end of it.
Yes, sir.
So I guess with all these that are R20 being potentially converted to manufacturing, it's gonna affect the whole area.
Yeah.
16 Smithfield Drive, CUB, you know, that whole Walmart deal with that light at 16, there's crashes there all the time as it stands. If you want to put an industrial facility back there, like, you know, the infrastructure and all. That's not, my point is this, is, like, I'm all for opportunities, like I said before. I hear that guy, it's just the devaluation, you know, the fact of an industrial facility being put right behind my house, like, our city ordinances here that prevent that. Like, it clearly states it, every single bit in our ordinance, every single one of those, like excessive noise, traffic, smoke, etc. Everything covers. The reason why convert a residential into a manufacturing, especially all those houses and everything. That's all I got.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we need to.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Duncan, if you could, I know these properties are in close proximity to each other, but if we could, right now, we're really talking about that rezoning MJP.
Yes,
So if we could let the discussion, we'll have plenty of time, we want to hear from everybody.
they have checked the boxes on which they wish to speak on, and they have checked.
Okay, I just don't want, I mean, this gentleman has some great comments, I just want to make sure that the comments are made at the, you know.
Certainly, yes, if,
Good.
I'm only going by the list that I have.
I say,
check and speak on.
I-
We'll try to filter a little bit.
If we could, again, we want to hear from everybody and listen, but I just want to make sure it's, so we don't cause confusion with the council, that's all.
He had to go to work.
He had to go to work.
Oh, that's no problem,
Thank
no
you.
problem,
Thank you.
I'm just making that comment so we kind of all, kind of,
Absolutely.
not get us confused.
Absolutely. Totally
Thank you.
understand.
Council, just for your, benefit, if you pick up on that, just, Smith and, Fox, rezone.
Mayor, council, there's no one left outside to speak on this specific item.
Okay. Second. Is there, let me just ask, one at a time, is there anyone in here that would like to speak regarding the, MJP, public hearing regarding the rezoning, of that particular 55 plus acres? If not, I have a motion, Mr. Eckert, second, Mr. Bill, that we close the public hearing. And at this time, we'll take up, item 10, which is ordinance 2-21. Mr. Lyons, Mr. Fennell?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, this is the ordinance that would change that zoning for the MJP Park. And that request being to EM1 exclusive manufacturing.
First, I want to say, Mr. Laura, I appreciate your efforts. I think we've been doing this MJP thing for 11 years or so. I know you've been out there knocking on doors and showing that property, you probably know every square inch of it. You know, we want to do development growth right. You haven't had success with the data campus situation. But I'm hoping that, this passes, that we'll be able to open our envelope a little bit and capture some of these really good opportunities that, it's okay, it's still in Cobb County, but once we've lost, we go somewhere else, that's the issue. So with that in mind, unless there's any further questions, all in favor of ordinance 2-21? Thank you, Mr. Bill. I'll say. The second, Mr. Fulbright. Now, I'll go ahead and ask for questions, comments. Ordinance 2-21, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion has carried. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now we're moving on to item 11, which is regarding the 34.4 acres off of 16, noted as the Smith property. So I'll start off with Mr. Glass. You're going to do the intro there.
I think this will be mine there.
Okay.
Mayor, members of the council, you received an annexation request last year. It initially was for a portion of this property. The city council tabled that, and we were able to have further discussions with the questioning the property owners as well for this area to be included for a total of 34.4 acres. This certificate of sufficiency has been read in public hearing set for tonight. And then we have an annexation survey available for you as well. And the advertisement ran on December 22nd. Mr. Van City Limits. Take the minutes.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If you are here tonight and have signed up to speak, we'd love to hear from you. Again, this request is regarding the annexation of 34.4 acres into the city of Conover, previously known as the Smith property. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. If you would come forward, state your name and address for the public record, and if you would just keep your comments on point and timely for the courtesy of all others that want to speak.
Mayor, members of council, our first speaker on the public hearing is Mr. Michael Starnes at 1124 North Carolina 16 Highway. One quick point as he approaches. The laws have changed since I used to also be a city manager and council planner in Troutman. Used to, you had very limited time, and the council didn't have to go before planning board to assign the zoning to the piece of property that was added in. If it was in your ETJ, you already had it in your zoning. Now you have 60 days from the time that the property is annexed in to assign the city zoning. If you do not, then you have to change your zoning code to accept the county zoning. Of course, you might want to do that. So just remember that if you don't take action on the rezoning, you have 60 days.
Say that one more time.
Once you annex, you must assign zoning within 60 days.
So if recommended zoning does not pass, we have 60 days to assign.
Correct. It will go back before your planning board and then you got back.
Okay, appreciate that. Mr. Starnes, welcome, sir.
Do I need to repeat my address since he said it?
I think we're good. I think we're good, sir.
All right, 1724, NC 16 Highway.
Thank you very much.
As before, as we met, my concerns are still the same. One is traffic, and more traffic. I got pictures of some cars off the road in my fence, and it happens all the time, upside down in my yard. You'll see that in a little while. Traffic is a big concern for me. Growth of Conover, that, as the guys, I don't know who said the prayer earlier, but I did hear it, and I hope y'all heard it, because it prayed to give you the wisdom to make decisions for the city, the citizens of the city of Conover. And I hope you did hear it and you take it hard. But right now, with our traffic situation, until it is remedied or show a different solution to make, if that would be, go into industrial, okay, I'm jumping ahead, I'm really looking at, that's what's we want to be done. But there should be an outlet or inlet somewhere. It needs to be a solution. We talked about this earlier at the last meeting. It's nothing new to you guys. I just want to remind you of it. And then as you asphalt and concrete and put up buildings, the flood situation out there, we have pictures of it as well. We'll project them here after a while, but the flooding situation is severe. It's not, and because you don't live there and you don't have to deal with it, maybe it don't matter to you. But it does to us. We see it. And people who live out that way see it, and we have to deal with it. You have a sewage plant right down the creek. I don't know what's acceptable to you, or to the state of North Carolina, how much sewage gets spilled over into the creek, and then goes into the lake. That our children, and probably your children or grandchildren, go down to the lake and play in. Okay? I don't know what's acceptable to y'all. You have to make this decision, and I too pray that you are given the wisdom from our Almighty God to do what's right for the citizens of Conover, not what's right for somebody's pocket. We have lots of industrial properties out there. You have industrial parks that are not full now, nowhere near being full. But yet you want to extend hands out this way and try to bring in more. It's not going to go anywhere. What's wrong doing it at a later time, on a date, when the road is ready, and the ideas are ready, and they're ready to put in place? I think we're jumping the gun. It's not the time to do any of this. I just really don't think so. Yes, I'm not ready for it. We farmed it, and we cut hay off of it, we've had cattle on it. I met with Mr. Wells. He can do what he wishes with, upon what you guys say. I think that's all I have to say on it. Please consider in your hearts to do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate you coming, sir.
There's no one else signed up to speak exactly on the annexation of this property, but we do have some to speak on rezoning, which is.
Understand. Thank you, Ms. Dunn. I appreciate that. Thank you, folks, out in Westfield. Appreciate your patience. Appreciate your comments. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the annexation of the 34.4 acres of the Smith property. Thank you, Mr. Bill. Second, Mr. Fulbright. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion has carried. Item 12 is ordinance 3-21, which is what we're voting on tonight, is rather to bring that property into the city limits through annexation. Mr. Glenn, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's what this ordinance is for, just to bring that in and bring it to the corporate limits. It'll be the full side of that tract, 34 acres. And then the later items on the agenda would be to, assign zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Any questions at all regarding what we're doing here? This is to bring this property, has been requested to come into the city limits.
Does some of the property go across the road like I see up there?
It does involve the right of way.
Some of the property go across 16.
It does involve the right of way.
It's like 1/16 of an acre, if I read all my stuff right.
Correct. It would include the right of way, yes.
Just right. Okay. Just curious.
Good question. Any other questions?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second, regarding the, that was on the, public hearing. I would entertain a motion and, second regarding the ordinance, on 3-21 to bring the Smith property into the city.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 3-21.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Ken Roberts. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has carried. Before we go to item 13, on item 10, with the MJP partners, can we interject into the minutes the required state notification? Please. Does that work? Okay, Mr. Bennett?
Would you like to read us down?
Yeah,
You talk about item 10.
Mr. Bill is gonna read it, sure, show him exactly where she is.
Item 10, I move to approve the rezoning request R20-08 as shown on Exhibit A, map for the campus. Office institutional, CI, to exclusive manufacturing, DM1, and adjustment to the land development plan to manufacturing because conditions have changed. Opportunities for manufacturing uses have expanded. We also find that the request is reasonable and is in the public interest because the rezoning will refocus the site to manufacturing uses, which is an area of growth for the local economy. The site is close to the interstate and infrastructure is in place to sufficiently service manufacturing uses.
Thank you. Mr. Fulbright, you seconded that?
Yes.
And that was unanimous, so thank you very much. Sure, glad that was the record. Thank you very much, appreciate that. All right, item 13 is a public hearing. I'll start off with the line. This is in reference to the rezoning for the 34.4 acres of the Smith property.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, members of the public. We have a rezoning request for a portion of this. At this time, it's the front, about 20 acres at the front of the site. We have on track A, which is this area here, this portion here, about 15 acres. We have a site plan, and Mr. Wells is asking for approval of the site plan as a conditional district. So it'd be, the request would be from county zoning, which is R20 residential, to a city zone, M1, which is general manufacturing, with that site plan as part of the approval. Just to note, the site has close access to exit 132, it's a little less than a mile. It's open and gently rolling to Lyle Creek. It is surrounded by residential uses across the street and to the side at Smithfield Drive. You'll hear a lot about that. The site plan itself, I'll go over that for track A, includes the rezoning, the grading of the site, kind of in this fashion. It kind of falls around to include a shared driveway for track A and track B. The area in front will be left open, and this will be graded down about 28 feet from the current grade that abuts Smithfield Drive subdivision. So it'll be below, the pad that will be developed will be below the grade of Smithfield Drive in the neighborhood. That should help with some impacts. The trucks would come along and would, or any other uses would, workers, visitors would park in front. Maybe there's access to the side.
Mr. Glass, just for clarification, homes at Smithfield would be here,
And the pad,
what you're talking about here would be down here.
it'll drop down. Because you do a cut and fill on the site, you end up with a graded site that's about 30 feet below, close to 30 feet.
The building height is 30 feet, correct?
The building height is 30 feet, correct. What Mr. Wells is asking for is a approval for a 150,000 square foot building that could be built in two phases. The first phase is what he's focused on now, which would be about 80,000 square feet, expandable to the rest of the area to the back. So it would be start in the front, and if you had a client that needed a larger space, it would go to the rear this way. And this would be expanded out as far as grading, the parking and any other access. As far as the Smithfield side, which is this side here, it's, kind of to the west, to the left of the site plan. There's no penetrations in that building. There's no openings. There's no access points. It's really more like a solid facade on that side. That's something there.
What's the setback there on the side?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I have that dimension memorized. I'd say it's at least 50 feet on the grade. So the first request would be for an 80,000 square foot building, expandable to 150. And and this entire pad, by the way, is outside the floodplain, so it won't affect the floodplain, it won't go underwater. The site plan is accompanied by conditions, which are Exhibit D conditions. We have a number of them in the packet that we provided that we worked with Mr. Wells to develop. The buffer, which is required, and we have a buffer requirement in our ordinance, but we had an agreement there to expand it, make it wider, have more vegetation, and to make it sort of a screen that will go basically close to the front up here. just to avoid site triangle, visibility issues, and it would go carry all the way back. When the project was reviewed with the site plan review committee of the city, we did get DOT comments, and they recommended that we get an extra turn lane into this site, and that trees heading this way, which kind of round the curve, if you will, be removed out of the right of way, which apparently they're planted within the right of way. So that would be removed to kind of improve some of that situation there.
You're talking about trees that are already on the property.
They're in the neighboring property within the right of way.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, kind of heading north on 16. They would be removed and taken out. That should help.
Decel lane, turn lane.
Yeah, coming into the site from heading north, we have a left turn lane in to turn into that site. So it would be dedicated left, which should help with some of the, I know there's a lot of concern about rear end collisions and other things that happen today out there with the current configuration. So these kind of changes to the roadway often follow the development or come along with a development proposal as part of that review. And so the DOT is part of every one of those kind of considerations that involve a state road, which is what this is.
So the widening that would be necessary to create the turn lane, would that be on both sides, or would that just be on?
Well, you see the area of right of way. This is kind of portraying it right through here. It would just depend on, it would take it out of this side, I expect, of the road, because there's excess space there. So this is conceptual plan, we have final plan, if it was approved, we'd have final plan, we get final engineering plans, and the DOT would get another shot at taking a look at it, and trying to make recommendations to assure safety out here.
Depending on the client, conditional zoning could change the buffers to make them wider.
Right, so through the conditions that we've worked on and provided tonight, that you all are considering, one of those recommendations is a wider buffer than would be the standard found in our code today. So we try to beef that up to address some of the concerns that we've heard about, kind of living near to a manufacturing facility. In our ordinance, a buffer to manufacturing is not only other zoning that is less intense, it's a landscape buffer. That's what it's for. It's meant to kind of help mediate that kind of interaction with two uses. We're looking at that. Continuing on with this, we have elevations provided, and the building would not exceed 30 feet tall. It would be tilt-up concrete. This is the side that will face the street. So it's got some articulation, main entrance, and then the other access points would happen on the northeast side of the building, if approved.
Away from the neighborhood.
Away from the neighborhood. The other part of this, let's see, I'm going to show you one other photo here. This is kind of a conceptual scale of that. And that's a similar building that's going up in Hickory right now. That would sort of follow the same pattern. You kind of can see how that would work. And this is a development that Mr. Wells has worked on and got approved through Hickory.
How far is the closest home to that building?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe Mr. Wells will probably answer that. Save that question. So the other side of this initial the city's action to assign zoning is that this tract, which is about 5 acres plus some change, would be zoned M1. And that's general manufacturing, doesn't have an assigned site plan with it. It would be available for other M1 uses that are allowed in our ordinance. The area to the top, it's mostly floodplain. There's a little bit of area outside the flood. We've had a request that we could, to change that request from a residential use to a manufacturing M1 use, but we'll have to bring that at a later date because of notification requirements and requirements for the planning board. We have to share that with them first.
Maybe Mr. Wells can answer why the last name changed on that.
Okay. That's all I have right now on that. I can answer any other questions, go over any of those development conditions if council is interested in that. The planning board at their meeting which we held in, I think it was October, might have been November, they denied the request. They recommended the denial to city council, and it was unanimous. So their concerns were the lack of a transition from residential to manufacturing use and how blunt that would be in their mind in this part of the city. They're also concerned about traffic and the existing conditions and problems that are kind of extant in this area right now. And they thought that,
Do we have that same situation over toward Granite Mills? Mr. Dunn, can you answer that?
As far as
Going from residential to manufacturing.
we have it in numerous places in the city, maybe hundreds of properties. You're our manufacturing community.
so, but that was their concern. They did deliberate on it. We have the minutes of, we've supplied that with this agenda, so you can kind of understand the conversation that they heard and were responding to. They were concerned about it, and that was their result. So I wanted to share that with you. I can answer any other questions at this time or wait. I did have one public comment, a person that did send something in when we do open the public comment period.
We're at the public comment. You want to go ahead and read that?
Okay. We received several emails from a Miss Andrea Elder who lives across the road. And she said that her address, I beg your pardon, her address is 205 Bellevue Drive. She wanted to know, with this other property that we were considering tonight, would there be a connection to the school, the Lyle Creek School, for industrial use? And I think the answer is no, so that's pretty easy to say no on that one. She asked, was there a plan to fix the flood zone problem across the street during and after construction? Well, we do manage the floodplain, and we have a stormwater ordinance in the city that we manage through development. So when developments are proposed, we do review them for compliance with our stormwater ordinance, which is really meant to kind of capture the disturbance that is being generated with the development, and then treat that water and release it at a pre-development rate. So we're not flooding, the zone, if you will. And we've had unusual rains this year, as we all know, and this is not going to address that. And finally, she asked, is there any challenge with having potential industrial use near a school? And I think that's kind of related to the Lyle Creek Elementary, but also she's thinking of the Tri-City Baptist Church. Used to have a school there, don't have a school there anymore. One other comment, no, not about this one. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Ron. Appreciate the presentation. This is a public hearing. It's a public hearing on behalf of the 34.4 acres of the Smith property for rezoning to, I guess you could say it's, was M1, but the back part of it is being residential, but now that's coming up later about M1, so the way to put it.
If it goes through the process, sir, it would go to planning board in February and back to city council in March for that remaining, I believe, 9 acres.
About 15 acres.
15 acres, call it 15 in the back. That would be determined by a later date.
Okay. This is a public hearing. If you're here to speak on regarding this particular rezoning, we'd love to hear from you this time. If you would just come forward as your name's called, and if Mr. Duncan doesn't state it, you'll state your name in public record, and your address for the public record. And we'll just please, we'll make sure we hear from everyone. So if you'll just try to keep your comments as brief as possible, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor, Member, and Council, our first guest on this hearing is Ms. Michelle Shelley at 1720 North NC 16 Highway Common.
Welcome, Ms. Shelley. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak and to hear me out. I've done a lot of research because this affects me right across the lake. And so because I live right across the street from that, in the city limits, about 6th or 7th generation farming. And I'm proud of that. And my kids and my nieces and my nephews, we all still live there and work there. They're concerned about it touching the Law Creek property. Like I said, my husband and I, we're curious, and kind of have figured out that probably eventually all of these tracts of land, to be rezoned to M1 will probably come together eventually, maybe, I don't know. Just trying to stay one step ahead of the game, trying to figure out what's going on. The concern where the Law Creek Elementary is that Mr. Wells or the Prism Enterprise, his real estate company, they own or have for sale or something like that, 2 huge tracts of land right behind Law Creek Elementary. And so Ms. Sigmund, who was in here before, she's kind of like the missing link for all of this to be pieced together. And so again, we're just trying to figure out what's going on so that we are knowledgeable. And since it affects a good amount of people, me and Sharice, sorry, not Sharice, my nerves are getting to me, but anyway, I spent 5 hours and I visited 45 people in Smithfield Drive in Bellevue. And I wanted them to be able to know what was going on. So there are some people who express their concerns. They're not good at tech savvy stuff. So I do want to present their concerns. The lady who lives, and I don't know how to work this thing. If you don't mind. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Last name is Nevins, because I'll be honest with you, I spoke to a lot of people, and there's nobody that's jumping up and down about this. There's not one person that said, woohoo, I'm so excited. And we all want Conover. We love Conover, that's why we moved here. We want it to grow, but not up against residentials. This lady who lives here, her last name is Miss Nivens, and she already has structural damage to her home because of all the flooding. And whenever I talk about flooding, it doesn't have to rain much, not at all. And so I brought some pictures, if you don't mind. My husband has a drone, he's a techie person, and I'm very thankful for that. And so he pulled out the drone. Some of it is, I'm a teacher in Catawba County. This past time, we did a virtual day. And so I stood, that's the drone pictures, but I stood on my front porch taking pictures of the water rising. And it rises a lot more than what people really, truly realize.
Is this the last event?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And if you can just flip through them if you want to, if you don't mind, and I can kind of explain them. So this is on back just a little bit farther toward Mr. Fox's property. And if you pull the picture down and you look behind it, there's substantial flooding even on the other side, on the backside property. So if you're talking about manufacturing, you're also talking about putting in that big warehouse, for lack of better terms. And this water is going to get even worse. It comes up it comes up very far. Do you mind flipping through another one, please? That's on down the way as well.
Let's see here.
And that's standing on my front porch. Yes, sir. Like I said, I live right directly across from this piece of land. And that's not even, and that's on top of the hill looking at it. And that is 2 hours away from its peak. That was not even its peak. Because I had to take my children, we had a doctor's appointment. So I just wanted you to be aware. And so whenever you hear flooding, it is substantial. We've lost, I don't know how much hay. And of course, we'll never get it back. We fixed the bridge down there. We used to have cows across the lake. We fixed the bridge on it how many times, and it got washed out. So, because I live across the way, and I know that you saw pictures of the proposed plan. This is the warehouse that you were speaking of before. That's in Hickory. And that's a picture at night. And I don't want to go outside of my house. I love where we live. I can go outside, I can see the stars. I can see Jupiter and Saturn come together. You know, my kids and I will look at constellations. But if that big warehouse is across the street from me and bordering other people, we're not going to be able to enjoy, you know, what we moved here for. Most of those people have been there for 10 to 30 years, and they love it there. It's residential. And if I'm not mistaken, a long time ago, that was the original plan, was to keep it residential. That's why they allowed those two neighborhoods to be there, Smithfield and Bellevue. So when we're talking about, and my husband, he works for Pfizer. He's been there for 25 years, and he works beside a building similar to that. Not only is there, there's a lot of noise because there's transfer trucks that come in and out. There's a lights issue. They don't have specific times where they have to cut off anything. It's basically 24 hours. And in addition to that, they also have smells. It's the most horrible smell whenever I go and take him lunch, or if we meet for lunch. And that particular building, it actually pulls in these odors, and the rest of the workers smell it. I can only imagine, you know, what's going to happen later, or what medical issues are going to come up because of this horrible smell. I have pictures again. Whenever we talk about wrecks, we're not talking about little bitty fender benders. We're talking about head-on collisions. This wasn't that long ago, maybe about a year ago. And this was, I'm pretty sure, a head-on collision. This isn't the first one. My daughter, she was riding her bicycle. My turntable is to the left or behind that gentleman there. And she was riding her bicycle, and she was out front and turned around and I just gotten home from school, and turned around in the turntable, and lo and behold, this happened. Do you mind flipping through the next one, please? So that's my house. That car was substantially in my driveway. That was pictures across the way. That's a little bit closer view. You can see how close it is to my house. And that's my picture that I took care, or that I took of it. Thank goodness that person, as far as I know, did live. It's a Hmong family, and for days upon weeks, they would come to the end of my driveway and put items out and sit there and pray. Because I'm pretty sure that person was in critical care for a very long time. And that's not the first time a vehicle has flipped or head-on collision right outside my house. This was actually a couple of weeks ago. There was a wreck down towards Smithfield, somewhere between Smithfield and Bellevue. And whenever a wreck happens, it backs up all the way to St. John's Church, or if not farther. I had a student with me, I was teaching him, and his parent could not get to him. I had to take the four-wheeler and take him and meet him down at the bottom of St. John's Church Road. But that just kind of gives you an example on the traffic and how dangerous it is. And right now, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, that sun is in the most perfect location in the sky to where you really cannot see the brake lights. You can't see the stoplights there at Walmart. And I can't tell you how many wrecks happen because of the location, the angle of the sun, the angle of the road, and all that stuff. But my son, he's 15 and a half years old, and it scares me. He's driving, and it scares me to know that he has to go out on this super busy highway. And I just pray that he comes home every time, that, the good Lord keeps us safe. And also the other people. So, that is pretty much all I wanted to say. I do appreciate your time. But like I said, I did want the community, because we are a community, and I wanted the other people in the neighborhood, not just the people who has borders or a property that touches, the properties that you're gonna speak about tonight. So, I pray that you take into consideration and please hear their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, I really appreciate you being here, comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. I'm sorry, Michelle.
It's okay. That's my maiden name.
We all with us tonight, Mayor of Ruby Council, Mr. Lynn Starr, just 1714 North in City Hall.
Welcome, Mr. Carter. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. So we've heard all the concerns. We've talked about noise, we've talked about light, traffic, water issues. We have a lot to be concerned about. This is a lot of acreage. We're looking, if I did the numbers correctly, looking to be about 295 acres that you're looking to take in, possibly do business on. I'm a logistics manager for MDI. I manage roughly about 1,000 loads coming in and out of that facility a day. That is a lot, that's a lot of traffic. As you all know, 321 is 4 lanes, but we're looking to go wider. I don't know the end purpose of all this, but I know what that's like. I do know that Conover is not set up to handle that. I don't think you want Conover to get that way. I just ask that you think about the people, you think about the properties. Not just currently, but down the road. Another question is, are our city services, our fire department, our police department, water and sewer, are they designed to handle the end goal? What is that gonna cost the taxpayers, not just now, but in the future as well? I just want to bring those things up. We've talked about a lot. There's no sense in beating a dead horse. Again, think about the people. You're elected by the people, for the people. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate you, sir.
Mayor of the Council, that's all we had outside to speak on this particular item. There are others with it.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan, I appreciate that. Mr. Wells, welcome, sir. Would you like to speak, during the public hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I don't have a lot to say that you haven't heard. I did want to respond to a few comments I've heard and tell you what I think this is about. We're not deciding whether Conover is going to lead the charge in bringing industry back from China. We're not here deciding if a lot of that industry will come here or even in Catawba County. But it's coming. There's 300 acres of Gaston County being graded right now for industrial. There's 1 million square feet was announced in Fort Mill last week in the press. It's coming. We've been crushed here in Catawba County. In 20 years, we've been crushed. We lost 30,000 jobs. They have not returned. And the buildings they used to work in are obsolete. We've been, like one of these sites, there's a pad there, but no building. It's been gone. Business went away. 2 businesses went away. That's happened everywhere, throughout this county. And there's only one way to address that. And you say it right there. Your motto is community and industry. And industry is the only way we'll get enough tax base to recover. Throughout this county, communities like Conover historically had low tax rates, 40 cents here for years. Now it's 50 cents, 25% increase. You had no choice. You lost your base. So did Hickory, so did Longview, so did everybody. There's only one way to replace that, with industrial. Single-family housing is a loser for public governments. They don't pay enough taxes to pay the cost of police and fire and schools. Industrial will bring money back to this community and allow us to hold or even lower tax rates. That's the goal. We cannot survive, as we found out with this PPE stuff. We can't make all our stuff in China and survive as a nation. If we don't bring it back, there's no point to do anything else. We're not going to make it. Two issues that continue to come up in this discussion. And I hate to bore you with all this, but I was the environmental chair for the North Carolina Senate. I actually took a course in fluid mechanics a while back. I know something about flooding. A project like this actually improves flooding. There's not a lot we can do. There's so much impervious surface. If you dump 8 inches of rain in a place, there's going to be flooding. It doesn't matter what it is. When you dump 8 inches of rain on top of saturated soil, like we created in August and September with record rainfalls, that dirt acts just like pavement. The water runs off and there's nothing to hold it back. So you're going to get flooding when you have rain on top of rain on top of rain. In these facilities, we're building detention. There's no detention out there anywhere. So when that rain hit in November, it went to the creek. It had no choice. In an industrial park built today, there will be detention and treatment. It's required, it's the law. You can't get around it, the others can't get around it, the builders can't get around it. That water will be addressed in a way it's never going to be addressed with other fields. Traffic is an issue. I'll talk to folks that know something about traffic. But it's not a capacity issue on NC-16. NC-16 is a major thoroughfare. And that's the beauty of this. You can put in your street within 1/4 mile of an interstate exit. There is nowhere in this county that you will find that kind of access with utilities already in place at your expense. You've already put water and sewer throughout this area, taxpayer expense. It's there, it's right at the interstate. We can't get much relief anywhere else but this kind of location. If you want industry in Conover, there's not a better spot to minimize traffic impact on the citizens here. It doesn't exist. There is a speed problem, there's no question. I've looked at data, I've requested them to look at data. Over the course of a day, every 20 minutes, somebody is driving through there at in excess of 70 miles an hour. That's not a road design issue. That's not a driveway issue. There are ways to deal with that. But that is going to exist today, whether this happens or not. That's going to continue. Those pictures you saw, whether it's flooding or wrecks, is going to continue, no matter what you do. Unless there are steps taken to fix it with detention and traffic design that can discourage excessive speed. So I would suggest that what's before you tonight is an attempt to address all the issues you've heard. It won't make them worse. It won't. Now, that's for your support.
Appreciate that, Mr. Appreciate the comment. This is a public hearing. Is anyone else would like to speak on behalf of the rezoning consideration for 34.4 acres of the said property? What else? If not, I can make a motion. Thank you.
Can we have one more comment?
Of course.
Okay.
If you hold your,
I'm sorry.
Sure. Please, Ms. Jones, come forward. Or Mr. Stark.
talked about retaining water. In the building of this. I don't know if we understand the force of water. And when I talk about, and I'm repeating myself again, down there at the creek, behind this, I can take it today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever, and I still want to reiterate, the trees that are down in the creek are not, I'm not talking about little saplings or something, I'm talking trees. And they're falling in, they caved in, they fell up the creek, across the creek, down the creek. The answer to the flooding is clean the creek. I'm not an engineer, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. I do it behind my home. I clean those trees out of the creek at my expense. It does help. It helps erosion. You know, it's something you guys have to address too. But erosion is a deal. It's something that Conroe is a concern with. Y'all have people appointed for that stuff. But the water, yes, we've had a very wet year, probably a record. But we go back 3 years, 4 years, whatever you want to do, it's still flooding. It still gets out, just like the pictures you saw. It's just doing it more frequently this year. You seal up that land, the land does absorb quite a bit of the water that rains. I know this. I dig post holes 4 feet deep, and it's wet 4 feet deep. It is absorbing it. All of it don't run off, but a lot does. But more will run off when you seal it up with asphalt and concrete. And you got these retainers? I looked at the retainers behind the truck stop over there the other day. Because I had a question about the water coming into the creek to my cattle. I noticed no minnows back up in that way. No, I don't own land up there. The retention areas they have are full. Nobody's looking at them. Nobody's policing them. Nobody's making them people keep them up to date and open and doing what they're designed to do. Not a soul. And I think that's not you. I think it's the state of North Carolina, is what I was told. I got Jimmy Clark before he retired. Congratulations. We both looked at it, and he said it is the state of North Carolina. He did something, I don't know what he done, wasn't my business. But I feel like he needed to see it, and I wanted to see it firsthand. But the retentions, it will hold a certain amount. Yes, it will. But I'm telling you, the answer is clean the creek. Whether the property owners put back a certain amount of money, the city puts up some money, the people up the creek put up some money, I don't know. But you guys have a direct problem, and what I'm hearing is like it's not, you don't want to face it. It is a problem. It's a problem now. It was a problem last year, the year before. It just didn't come up. This is just something that pops the top off the bottom and make it spew, and so you guys can hear it. But I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. It is that important to me. I want it to be that important to you. It's your family too. It's not just mine that goes to the lake down that creek. When it was beautiful days on Sunday or whatever you want to do with your family. It affects us all. Please understand that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. And, I know 2 months ago, we talked about that creek upstream, so that we launched out our bridge trails every time. So, you know, we understand what we're talking about. Cleaning out the creek. Mr. Bill, you had made a motion about, closing the public hearing. Yes, sir. Good. Did I get a second on that? Second. Second, Mr. Hammond. Any further discussion on the public hearing? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, now we'll move on to ordinance, 421. Mr. Klein, this will be the conditional rezoning for the 34.4 acres, known as the Smith property.
Sir, it would be, for track A would be the conditional zoning for the M1, for the 14 acres that represent that building pad, and 5 more acres, a portion of track B, that would, be an M1 change. That's what the request was. It was a portion of the 34 acres, about 20 acres, a little bit of change on that. But the remaining part in the back, we'll bring that back later, but it's the front part I've seen on this map. You'll see that there.
Can I understand why we're changing the back?
Originally, Mr. Wells requested a residential use here. We kind of negotiated that through this process of a single access point for residential use coming from the back of this track, behind the building, if you will, coming down the slope to reach this piece of land here. It's about 2 acres dry and about 13 acres that would be sort of in the floodplain. Well, after the hearing in December, Mr. Wells contacted me and asked that this be changed to an M1 use as well. And that was his request to kind of supply a new application. And because of notification and time to kind of let people know about it, like the public, and have a comment period from the planning board, that was, we couldn't make this meeting, to this meeting date. So that's why it's coming later. But it's Mr. Wells's request to change that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question I have is, I understand we got a unanimous denial from the planning board. What about the land development plan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a slide. I'm going to skip ahead a few slides. I'm going to bypass a few items just because I have this at the very end of the PowerPoint. I wasn't sure if we would need it today or not, but here it is. I'll orient you if you don't mind. This is the exit with Thornburg Drive. And this is the graphic that comes out of our land development plan adopted in 2003. This deep red is commercial, and this happens to be where the Walmart is located. And then the blue area, which kind of crosses the creek or gets to the creek, was an industrial zone. And institutional zone. And that's where Tri-City Baptist Church is. This was acknowledging the front part of what used to be Joe Bell's and a restaurant there, commercial. And then the rest of this yellow area is all residential kind of use. That's why if you have a zoning request and it doesn't match up to this, it's an adjustment or amendment to that plan. This area in red here, I double checked it just a little while ago. This is that Smith tract, pretty much. That was recommended to be multifamily apartments. And then the area in pink, those areas were kind of set aside, imagined to be small lot, single family homes. Might be a traditional neighborhood type of design. So it could be small lots, a little bit closer together, or even townhomes. So that's what the plan for this area was. Once you left I-40 here, this area would be residential with plenty of green space.
It also shows Northern Drive going all the way up Hickory too.
Well, it does. This is, would have been a Northern Drive extension that, obviously, we got the part that it's in Conover right here by the Walmart, but it doesn't cross over like that plan suggested. Beautiful plan.
This was the plan from 2003.
Yes, sir. And this is what we're operating under today. We still use that plan. We're actually in the process to study all these topics and review them with our planning board. Our planning board, we talk to council about that. Our planning board is our primary community kind of input with them. So we kind of go through a series of modules, if you will, of topics that we study in detail. So this was, since we've kind of covered land use in this area, and then this application came in after that. And that was kind of all things being weighed and considered, they recommended denial of that request. I'll move back up to the item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you mentioned buffers, which I really like hearing that you could actually increase, buffering just like the other for visual. What would you do? How would you do light, and how would you do fumes? How would you buffer that from the residential areas?
Well, these industrial districts that we have, they're meant to protect for those things like noise and light and sound and all those sorts of things. So one way is the visual buffer with the landscaping. It does help muffle sound. We do have a noise ordinance, And the noise ordinance says that we shouldn't, that we have something in place to act upon should a manufacturer or other commercial use, could be other commercial use, makes undue noise. We can pursue that through a complaint basis. And then the lighting, we have a lighting ordinance in the city. And so didn't know, Ms. Shelley had an image there. Not sure what that development is, but our lighting ordinance requires what we call full cutoff fixtures, which means that the lights shine down and there's a shield around them. So imagine this little fixture here. This is not shining down as the sun is shining out, and so it blinds the neighbors. But if you have a full cutoff fixture, this thing shines directly down. Right, so it stays on the property, and that includes even building lights or fixed lights on the building. They're full cutoff, so they shine down, they don't spread out. And so many modern ordinances for lighting include that kind of provision. Now, the fumes thing would be air quality and safety, and I think if we had complaints about that, we'd have to look into it with our air quality partners with the state. We don't have our own ordinance for that.
Did we not address that once we found out what the tenant was gonna be, and if the tenant, if there was others, when you informed him, we would address it before they were happening, correct?
Right, we could look into it for the larger projects especially. The larger projects in Conover, conditional zoning begins when a project is 100,000 square feet or larger. So if they're smaller than that, we could still address it, but it wouldn't be through a zoning, it would be a zoning kind of negotiation like we're having tonight with Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Well done. Question for council, any more questions for Mr. Vine regarding 4-21? With rezoning, M1, / I guess residential for the 43, or 34.4 acres. Any other questions?
No, Mayor, you're only rezoning the front.
You're only rezoning the first 14 acres.
Yeah, the 20 acres that are produced in this map. We did provide a possible motion to.
No, we're only rezoning
Part of it for now, yeah. But there is a motion on the dais there for support, motion of support or motion of denial.
Correct, that's what I was getting to, so it's really, I'm just saying 34.4, it's really 15, what?
It's 20 total demonstrated in this map here, the area hatcher. 20.4 acres.
Okay, thank you.
So, the part that we're not rezoning, we just annexed, so we will have to rezone, we'll have to zone it.
60 days, that's right. So we'll time that and bring it back around to you all in a timely fashion. We have to see the planning board, they didn't review that request. They have to.
If we did not rezone it within the 60 days, would it revert back to the county zoning of R20?
Actually, you go through the process of amending your ordinance and including that R20 designation, so you have to change your zoning ordinance. I certainly don't recommend that.
Well, I understand.
We think 60 days is enough time to get back to see you. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, appreciate that. Any further questions on that? No, I'll entertain the motion, and whoever's doing, if you want to entertain a motion for approval or denial, we'll need to read this statement. So, you, Mr. Fulbright?
Thanks, Mr. Director.
We've heard a lot of talk here about this property and the other properties, and there's going to be more to come. But I think that we have shown that we will work with developers or landowners to hopefully get a project that is good for the entire city, for the entire community, that it will provide jobs, but at the same time, we will buffer to the best of our ability, to take care of the lighting to the best of our ability, the traffic. We have a turn lane already designated for this.
And we're looking for the future Conover that goes, not 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years from now, but for the next 20 or 30 years. And, I think if we plan things properly and zone properly, that we will continue, as Mr. Wells said earlier, maybe one day we can get back to being have the lowest tax rate in the county, and the people that live here will be paying less, they'll have good jobs, and hopefully, they can raise their families. But with that being said, I will move to approve the rezoning request R 2006 shown on plat 81-107 from county zoning R20 to general manufacturing conditional district M1 CD for tract A, general manufacturing M1 for a portion of tract B, and the adjustment to the land development plan in manufacturing because conditions have changed and opportunities for manufacturing uses have expanded. And also find that the request is reasonable and is in the public interest because the rezoning will expand opportunities for one of Conover's key employment sectors. The site is close to the interstate and infrastructure is in place to sufficiently service an industrial use while buffering neighboring residential uses.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard, for that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Kennebar. Any further discussions regarding the matter? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Motion carried. Item 15 is the public hearing regarding the Conley C. Fox Trust, Smithfield Drive. Mr. Duncan, sir?
Members of council, the Fox property is the county considered as one large property. It's actually divided into two. You have the Bell Fox property, which was the home of the former Joe Bell's retail outlet and Stockyard Restaurant, which is the area you see in purple attached with the city limits on it. The Conley Fox property is the property in the back that has this right painted that goes over, and kind of borders the creek and backs up behind the property that we just discussed. There's an annexation request from the family of Conley that's represented by Mr. Wells. And, it has ran in advertisement in December 22nd in the Urban News Enterprise. It's a total of 82.51 acres. And when you're actually denied it, if you accept, we'll bring it in the city public meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan, I appreciate it. This is a public hearing regarding the annexation of the Fox Living Trust. It's a total of 83.51 acres. If you are here to speak on behalf of the annexation piece of this, we'd like to hear from you at this time. If you'll come forward and state your name and address for the public record, and if you'll just be courteous to the time, we would appreciate it. This is the Conley C. Fox Living Trust property located off of Smithfield Drive. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Fulbright. Someone want to check on this record? Okay. Should we wait?
I think so.
Yeah.
You just need to remind me.
Sir? Metro?
Yeah.
Mayor, members of council, while we're waiting on that, I'll bring in our next guest to speak on the next item, if that's okay.
If you could, we're closing the public hearing right now.
Yeah.
For the annexation.
Yeah, I was just gonna start bringing them in if you're, for the next item, so you, while we're waiting on Mr.
Mr. Chairman, we have we're talking about the annexation for the Fox property, 83.51 acres. And, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or concerns? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This is close the public hearing, Now we're going to ordinance 5-21, which is the ordinance to extend, the corporate limits for the Fox property. Any comment over, Mr. Lyon?
Mayor, just that ordinance is in front of you. It just includes, the next item will include both pieces of the Fox family tract, much like this, but really the only area that needs to be brought into the city is this area here. So that's the annexation request of the 83 years. Thank you.
Move we approve ordinance 521.
Second, Mr. Haynes. Second, Mr. Bill. Any further questions or concerns about, bringing this into the city? 83.5 acres, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has carried. Now we'll move to item 17, which is a public hearing for, zoning ordinance to amend the, Bell Fox Living Trust, Conley Fox Living Trust properties that, part of that is already in the city. We've asked to rezone it, and the other is going to be in zone after the annexation, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's a total of 122.5 acres, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Lyon, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, again, members of the public. This is the Bell Fox Living Trust property. This kind of area in front was that, the area that was the Joe Bell site of the restaurant. Everyone remembers that. In the back, during the master planning for T&D or traditional neighborhood, there was a kind of a few different ranges of residential back there that would be focused on apartments or, kind of a dense single-family residential. And then this area was zoned open space, acknowledging the floodplain areas back in the back. So the entire site today, the request is to bring that into a general manufacturing, M1. There's no master plan with this. We'll be waiting for that master plan when a development comes in. But of course, we have our site plan review committee, and we do review this carefully with our DOT partners and everybody in the city for safety and other minimum standards to city code. I just wanted to point out that manufacturing uses do require safe and sufficient access. The Bell Fox tract has frontage on 16. There will be a driveway design prepared when we find a manufacturing use for this site, when it's identified. This layout will be reviewed with the NCDOT to be sure that the design complies with all traffic and safety standards. The Smithfield subdivision will not be an access point for any manufacturing use. I think it should be made a clear point for the sake of the neighbors there. The Smithfield Drive itself will never be a use or an access point for manufacturing. We just won't permit that. The zoning code also requires a landscape buffer when manufacturing uses are adjacent to residential areas. This is typically an evergreen buffer that would be provided as a screen for the neighborhood when a manufacturing user is eventually identified. And we have talked about this with the conditional zoning that we just reviewed. We're able to beef that up, and we could work on our basic standards that apply to all development, whether it's small scale or larger scale manufacturing adjacent to residential. We could make some changes to that to make an improvement. Council would recommend that. The tracts today are currently surrounded by a variety of zoning districts, reflecting this close proximity to I-40. This is where we're at. We're less than a half a mile. To the north, the area is a campus office institutional, just changed to EM1. Then we have single-family county. To the east is Smithfield Drive subdivision, it's zoned R9A. And we have county zoning R20 surrounding, and also the Conley Fox pieces that way now. To the south, this area is zoned mixed use, neighborhood residential, and at the west, we have more COI, more MX, and more open space. This whole area adjacent to exit 132 is zoned corridor commercial. That's part of the tract with Walmart and areas surrounding that. And as I said, larger projects over 100,000 square feet, they're always reviewed as a conditional district through a public process that we're in tonight, like this. But even if this underlying zoning is M1, which is what the request is, the general manufacturing, a larger project will still be only approved following a site plan review and rezoning approval. The underlying zoning acts to set the stage for future uses that are smaller than that threshold as a by right use. As a part of the process for larger projects, the site plan and conditions are negotiated between the developer and the city council. It's on a case-by-case basis for those larger sites. Site features such as access to the development, landscape buffers, and other operational aspects of the development would be negotiated and be part of that approval, should it happen. Now, we did review this request with the planning board December 8th. They heard a lot of the same comments that you heard tonight, or might hear coming up with the public hearing. In the end, the planning board was unable to render a recommendation to city council because neither the motion to approve or the motion to deny received enough affirmative votes to reach a simple majority. So we have a 8-member board. It was a kind of a 4, and then the move to approve was a 3-5. So somebody changed their mind in the middle. So the motions to approve or deny did not have a majority of vote. So I can answer any questions for you about this. I did have some public comments that came in, particularly for this Fox request. Wait, we're ready for that, okay. Stacy Self, who lives at 3610 Smithfield Drive, she emailed to say, I would like to have my concerns noted for this vote. I am concerned about the increase in traffic and noise factors if these properties are rezoned to manufacturing. As I live on a border property, I am also concerned about keeping people off my property as it is currently not fenced, and the expense, it would be her expense if she has to fence it in, she says.
And where is her residence?
She's on Smithfield Drive, 3610. I'm not sure which house that is.
She lives in the curve,
In the curve.
right up there in the top. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank her for her comment. Miss Elena Sanchez did call in right before the time today, and she talked to the city clerk. She says, I have lived here for 13 years. The traffic is already bad. If this is developed, there will be more traffic issues. I am concerned because of the children in the area, noise, pollution, and flooding. This will not be safe for us, and the value of our property will go down. What type of manufacturing will be at this location? Will it be different shifts and add more traffic at all times of day? That last bit is something we can't answer right now with the general zoning requests for manufacturing. Another one, Miss Beth Hoovey. She lives at 3509 Smithfield Drive. She says, I'm opposed to rezoning due to it being in my backyard and with the noise and congestion that I am putting up with already with the trucking problem. She says, I am sick and confined to home, so the noise and congestion are very irritating, causing me to have no sleep and rest. We appreciate your vote down on this one. I have one here for, I believe I've already read that one, I beg your pardon. I had a phone call from a neighbor who lives at 204 Bellevue Drive. This is Caleb Bynum. We had a nice conversation. He says he's concerned about the traffic growth and how the traffic will be handled. He's asked about, what about a light being there or other traffic improvements across from Bellevue? And what I spoke to him about was that when we have a developer identified, we would go through our site plan review process and we would consider these kind of improvements as necessary with the help of our DOT. He also mentioned that he would appreciate if there was some way to attach these access points back to Northern Drive to kind of relieve some of the pressure coming off of 16. And he understood that we would have to wait for a developer and see what could be done with that. But that was a suggestion and comment from him. And I have one more, this is the last one, thank you. Sure. Excuse me, Joseph Awad at 1522 Bellevue Drive. He says he's not in favor of the rezoning to M1. He believes the rezoning would put a major amount of industrial traffic in the area that is overwhelmed with high traffic volume as it is. Another concern is flooding. The area creeks are already flooding after a storm. Where would all the water run off? That is being absorbed in the ground. That is being absorbed into the ground would go if a majority of that area is covered in concrete. He says part of the land mentioned is already in the flood zone. Where will that water go?
Thank you, Mr. Lyons, I appreciate it. Just one question, for you, Mr. Lyons, before we open the public hearing.
Sir.
The portion of this that's already in the city, how is it zoned now?
It's a mixture of zoning types. The very front is zoned MX, which is mixed use. So that's kind of a broad commercial use. We've used that for areas near downtown and, for example, the Conner Station area, it's all MX. And this is a variety of residential zones, including multifamily.
So R9, R9A?
Yeah, but it's the T and D, so it's neighborhood center, neighborhood, yeah. We have kind of parallel in the T and D part of the code, and then this area here is open space.
Does that match the land development plan?
This area is better matched to the land development plan,
No,
correct?
the current zone matches.
Yeah.
Is there any of that in the flood zone?
The area, towards the back, this is flood zone area here, and it kind of it'll wrap around, all the way around here, which actually links up to the back of this other site we were just reviewing and discussing. That's all floodplain.
Can I ask you a question? I actually like to address the question to Mr. Millar. In the fact that if all this area comes together into, a big several hundred acres, whatever, whether it be industrial park or not, but how would you, I know you've had success, the city of Hickory and the county have had success with Trivium Corporate Park, which is, as far as I know, manufacturing, but it's high-tech, pharmaceutical, automotive, it's on Startown Road, which is a 2-lane road. But you drive by there, and all you see is the top of the Copeland, it's a very nice entrance. My vision for this area is something Trivium 2, or Trivium's an A+ park, I would want ours to be an A- park. Is that any part of the process thinking along those lines, or where are we at there? Or what do you see?
No, I think that the plan for this would have to be above what we have now. Certainly, Trivium is a good example of what was established in the city of Hickory with participation by Catawba County. We started discussing this with the landowners in 2010. We started pulling it together in 2012, and we got options written in 2014. Nothing happened in the park until 2018, when we had an official announcement for the park. And it started in 2018 with the announcement in September of Corning, which I think the picture that was shown of the lighting, that was one of Corning's facilities within the park there. The plan for this would certainly be, of course, the concept behind economic development is to raise the bar for everybody. I've been doing this not 47 years, but I've been doing this with you all since 1988. And we've landed $6 billion or more worth of investment and new jobs that were above the county average wage since that 1988 period. The whole concept of economic development is to raise the bar of what you have. And what we would try and do here, we have not incentivized a project in Catawba County that did not meet the average county wage at that point. We try to encourage much greater opportunity. One of the things about this parcel, as Mr. Wells alluded to, is that there's utilities there that have already been put into place. This, actually, the Joe Bell's entrance there is above Smithfield, and certainly the traffic issues that have been discussed may or may not be appropriate in the Smithfield part. I mean, obviously, it will impact everybody, but it's closer to the interstate exchange. And so this is sort of a easy putt or a low-hanging fruit development opportunity that I think could develop quickly for higher-end opportunities than what you currently have. I think one of the things we have to factor in are where we're going to get people to fill the jobs. Certainly, we're trying to balance new homes, new residential development throughout the county. We're trying to balance new job opportunities that are paying wages. They can afford those homes that are having to be built. All of us know that those are being more expensive to be built right now than they have been recently. So creating tax base and jobs is a plan of economic development. To paraphrase the North Carolina Secretary of Commerce, he said, good luck comes to those who are prepared. And, you all have had a history of being prepared, and so you've gotten good luck. Certainly the Tribune example is good luck. Did I answer your question?
How many acres is Tribune?
Tribune started as 270 acres. We only built 170 to start with, and then just last year added that initial 100 back into it. 270 acres.
Now, that whole area out in there was homes everywhere and farmland, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Yes, it was mostly vacant farmland, and it was going to break up into different uses. So by now, who knows how many fragments of that family tract would have been out there, none to be developed and none to be successful. In the last 28 months, 5 new building developments have been announced within Tribune on those sites that are within Tribune. So highly successful. Right now is a window of opportunity, and we see this as being a pretty good opportunity for the short-term development and low-cost developments that we're talking about. High wages.
Outside of Tribune, if these three, I'm gonna call them 3 parcels that we've discussed tonight, outside of Tribune, do you have another project like this in Cobb County?
Not developable like this. I mean, certainly if we go with a developer that encourages the right treatment, you said A- development, I don't want to use minus anyway, let's say A anyway.
Yeah, it's A++.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is Conover, right?
That's right.
But I think certainly we would try and push for the conditional zoning requirements that are here, certainly around Smithfield. We want to be respectful of the people and the requirements that are there. We want that to be a higher end development. And so therefore you have to do the special treatments that I think are of concern to the people that have spoken tonight.
You talk about special treatments, you talk about like a gateway into.
I'd love to have a nice, presence as you enter the park. I'd like to have good, the industrial users are just as scared of the residential, problems that are on the site. And so a developer would have to, I think, a successful developer would have to address the concerns from an industrial perspective. But, and that would satisfy some of the commentary that's happening from the residential side.
Well, we've had the NJP, you showed it a number of times, but never got hit. You got three pad sites there.
Correct.
Will this help or take away for different animals?
I think it's, remember that for the last 7-8 years that the NJP has been developed, we have been marketing it, trying to land data centers on that. Had we been marketing it to other opportunities, maybe that would have been a better or quicker success. The potential of somehow making a campus of these facilities, a campus makes you think about higher end opportunities. And so, the connecting this could appeal to data centers, it could appeal to anybody that would go into a campus setting, more than the opportunities that we have with just that, what's COI on this map. So, yes.
This is a public hearing. It's item 17. You're here on behalf, to speak on this particular item, which is the Bell Fox and Tom Fox Trust property total 22.5 acres. We'd like to hear from you at this time, please.
Mayor, members of council, we have with us tonight Mr. Tarsi Mitchum from 3605 Smithfield Drive, Northwest Taunton.
You said Mitchell?
Yes.
Mitchell. Welcome, Ms. Mitchell. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having us all. It's been a long wait, but I'm glad to finally see you. So thank you for having me. Yes, I'm a resident at 3605 on Smithfield. That is going to be your second lot from the end. My neighborhood, or my property in the neighborhood, the back of my property butts up against to the Fox property. And so I did take time to write something out just so I would not waste any time and stay organized. I'm here to state the facts to you, the council, as I know them to be true, and I hope that you can see this to be the truth and take my concerns and the others that have been here to heart. These facts are based on my personal experience and the direct impact to my home on Smithfield Drive. We purchased the home in 2016 from the previous owners, Danny and Nancy Marshall. They were owners of Marshall Photography, longtime Conover residents. These owners had French drain system installed in 2013. This consists of 6 catch basins to control the water around our home, both to the rear and to beside our residence. These drains are maintained and cleaned many times a year and are continually checked to help control the water within our own boundary. These lines have been repaired and replaced as needed over time. This system is not the failure. It is the failure of the owners to our back that have ignored our pleas of resolution over the last 3 years, the owners of the Fox Trust. Over the years, the water issue and damage to my property have become an expensive and heavy burden to bear. The images that I brought, and then I'll have them displayed in a minute, these were not taken during hurricane season. They are not after flash flood watches and warnings. This has become a regular occurrence due to normal rainfall if it consists of more than 2 days. The flood waters pour over the back of the Fox property line at my fence post. It becomes as deep as 2 feet, and it flows like a mountain stream along the fence line and then overflows onto and down my property. I have made several attempts for years in writing letters to contact these owners about their property and the flooding it causes our home. The state of North Carolina states that water is a natural enemy of all owners unless action is taken during development or land changes to force water away from a flooding property onto an adjacent property. I've heard no response from these owners in over 3 years, and I hear no answers from the council as to the plan for this floodplain. I want the council to realize that the water is not on the back of the Fox property like a map would illustrate, but at my Smithfield fence line, and now at my back door, excuse me, and under my house. It has ruined my beautiful yard, my pavers, and my retaining wall. It has eroded many parts of my yard, walkways, causing sinking, and continues to cause damage to our home's foundation. And after I realized what was going on from Mr. Starnes and others, I reached out to my realtor. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read the letter that she sent me.
Please.
This is Miss Jennifer Elkins. She is with Hickory Real Estate Group in Hickory. And she's also a Conover resident. She lives in Lake Park. Dear Tarsi, as a realtor concerned about the value of residential property here in our community, there is a great concern for your property value if the property around your development is rezoned into general manufacturing. You will be faced with issues like increased traffic, including 18-wheeler traffic and their noise, along with their extra wear and tear on the roadways. Getting out of your neighborhood can already be challenging at certain times of the day, and this will make the matter worse. This type of building also causes erosion issues. They develop their own property, but do not care about what happens downstream. With all these issues, you will reduce the desirability of your home. Most buyers do not want to be surrounded by manufacturing plants, the noise and traffic and et cetera that they bring. To make your home of more interest to the buyers when you decide to sell, you will likely need to reduce the value of your home. I wish you all the best, Jennifer. And my questions, just open questions, I know you may not have answers for today, but things to think about are for the council, where are we sending this flood water? Because as a lot of us have illustrated, Michelle brought flood images. It's not during a hurricane, it's not during unusual rain. For me, if I see it's gonna rain more than 2 days, and I'm talking here, if it's gonna rain more than 2 days, I go out, we check the French drains, we check the downspouts, we check the gutters. And if they have the photos for me, somewhere, I'll go through them real quick and I'll show you what I mean when I say I bought my dream home. I saw this online, I thought it was a park, it's actually my backyard. The next photos, you can just flip through them and I'll just tell you what they're about. This is every spring to the summer, for the last 3 years have reseeded my yard. And anybody who's reseeded their yard, it is not cheap. The next will show you what it looks like today. It's not for, as you can see, it's not for like a carrot, it's erosion. Over time, every year come fall, with established grass, this is what I end up with. This is the other angle, and you'll see where the papers and everything are. The problem to the left, that's the property line. It pours over, it goes between those two pin oak trees and around the corner, and also comes down to the right. And this is what it looks like now. We just call it the mud hill, because that's all we can do with it. The next picture. We had built it up, I put dirt, I put mulch, we put rock, and every plant we put back there is dead. They rotted, washed out. This was taken under my house today, so you can see that it's dry. And the reason you even see a hole is because this is after the damage of the flooding. This is the corner where the far corner to the end where you actually enter. My foundation is sinking. And like I'm telling you, this has not been during flash flooding. We get a couple rain showers, I've got water coming up, and it's under my house. And it's over a foot deep. It's causing my rock wall to start to sink now because the area I showed you before was grassland. It goes around the corner in between our trees. It's running down along my rock wall. Now it's starting to sink and erode. So I have no idea how much this is going to cost me. And this is just to show you, you can see the barbed wire. Their old cattle fence comes up next to my fence. There's about, the foot or whatever you have to give for the fencing. And it's hard to tell from the picture, but right past those trees, that's where the water rushes through. It brings debris, limbs, trash. The next picture. It's eroded out so much that you can see that now where they concrete initially, we filled it in a few times and that's the worst area where it does flood the most out. Yeah, more trash, debris. This was taken probably, I'm gonna say we took this the next day after the water had finally gone down. It had been running through there for a full day. And these are a little out of focus, I thought, because I had to take them from a video, because I made plenty of videos to document. But as you can see on the right, it flows out, and this is just a section, but it flows out of the woods like a creek. And when I took these pictures, the picture to the left is right past the first tree, right over the side of the property line, and it's probably 2 feet deep there. And this is when it has rained the day before, and this is the next day when the water started receding. So I'm not out there at midnight or whatever time of night it's raining, but the next day when I come out, I can look at my backyard and I can say to myself, well, now I'm going under the house because I know there's water under there. Because I can see from the water and the pattern of the trash it brings down the hill that it's running out of the hill. And so I really just wanted to bring those in and show you what I'm struggling with because we've tried to contact the Fox family. We've worried about this property for a long time, and now if you make it a concrete jungle, I don't know where that water's going. And I just want to say that our family, we chose Conover for the great people who live here in the small town feel. We found our dream home, I found my dream yard. And I hoped it would be our forever home. If we are surrounded by concrete jungle, like I said, with the noise, traffic, flooding, pollution, we will have to find our forever home somewhere else. We are asking the council to care about us as citizens because we chose to make Conover our home when we could have gone anywhere else. Thank you.
That's the question,
Yeah.
are your neighbors experiencing the same?
Yes.
Yes, sir, my, neighbor Matt was here earlier. Water flows through, the back of his property. The neighbors to the right of me, the Nivens family, they are experiencing settling from all the flooding. And, I would like to add, you stop me?
So the hill crest behind you?
The hill behind us is higher than we are. So over time, either it's the debris or the erosion or what, it's taken a hard right and it comes over the hill. As far as I know, the last 4 houses, the house up from us has flooding too. It's the last 4 homes. It pours out of the woods. And we tried to contact them because we were told when we contacted an attorney and we contacted the state of North Carolina, well, water is everybody's problem. I'm like, okay. And then they said, well, if they develop it, then it becomes an issue because then they cannot send the water. I mean, they can't force water, they can't drain water towards your property. And the problem is it already does that. And I would like to add that, this in my notes, I did hear Mr. Wells' name quite a bit while I was speaking with residents with Michelle this past week. And I was told by the neighbors who could not be here, to please remind the city council about the dealings with Mr. Andy Wells in the past because he pushed for rezoning property next to the YMCA here in Conover and it's still sitting for sale. And as neighbors, they said that we are asking you to invest in us, your Conover citizens, and protect our properties and not go along with his latest venture. But I thank you all so very much for hearing this.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, Tom. Okay.
Mayor, members, council, we have one more guest list, Ms. Alice Pitcher, from 1608 Highway 16 North. Alice, would you like to say this? She has with her tonight for her son, Michael, considering the support for his nice thing.
Good evening, Ms. Bishop. Thank you, Tom.
Hi, I don't have a lot of complaints about water or anything. What I'm concerned about, what they're gonna do about the traffic. It's so many wrecks right there at my house. I mean, it's just about 1 or 2 a week. And it just blocks my driveway and I'm aggravated with that. And it takes me about 5 minutes to get out of my driveway from about 7 o'clock in the morning until like 3:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And it was a sign there that said 45 miles an hour at one time. Well, somebody knocked it down and he threw it up in that weeds over there on the bank. And there's no signs out there, we need a stoplight, we need something there, because somebody's gonna get killed, because they come through my yard if they can't get stopped. I mean, so I need something done about traffic.
What's your address?
1608 Highway 16 North.
Okay.
Travel stuff, we,
And it's, and as far as Joe Bell's is concerned, there is a lot of traffic over there. And I hope something's done about that eventually,
Traffic in your middle.
any kind of traffic, any kind of traffic. But I'm concerned about the traffic. It just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And a lot of times I'll get out of my drive and I'll go right and go to St. John's in order to get to Conover. That's about all I've got to say.
Well, thank you for sharing, Mr. Connors, anything you want to comment
There
about.
definitely needs to be some kind of signs out there to try to get these people to slow down some.
We'll make a note of that speed limit sign now.
Do that, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blunt, you want to talk about egress entrance?
Yeah, we will study any entrances, any of this tract of land. We will manage that when we have a development in hand, and we can review a site plan, one way or the other, whether it comes back to council because it's a larger project or even for a smaller project. We do have our site plan review committee and DOT, the NCDOT is part of that. So they help us with every aspect of development. So, you know, at the corner up there, there's the Wendy's going in. Well, DOT weighed in on that and told us what they needed. So that's their involvement. It's a site plan by site plan basis, or in this case, it might be a campus, and they'll help us with that. We do employ an engineering firm who can help us with traffic mitigation as well if the DOT needs a little backup support. And that's why we have an engineering firm on call for our needs here in the city.
Can you comment on the stormwater damage that these residents are having? I would think that if that property behind it was developed, would they not be required to mitigate that runoff?
Yeah, anytime that a developer disturbs an acre or more, they're required to sort of store water from the initial flush of rain. It wouldn't be the 7-inch storm we had a few weeks ago. It's gonna flood. That water's gonna flood. Okay? There's no way to stop that. But for smaller rains, the kind we get on a daily basis, it should manage that and should release it again at a pre-development rate. What you can't do is capture all that rain and stick it out a pipe, and that pipe shoots the water to the neighbor downhill. That's what is not permitted in a stormwater ordinance, and ours follows that rule.
You also can't grade in such a way that's going to cause the water to run towards that.
Right, concentrate.
Property that
Yeah.
Mr. Canner is referring to.
Well, there would be a buffer down through there, wouldn't it?
There would be a buffer down through there.
Well,
Yeah.
that might solve her problems then.
Yeah, I mean, I was fascinated to hear about that, really, because I just don't understand what could be happening and how it could have changed. See, it looks like it's been farm field and it's still farm field, so what was the difference? And maybe the neighbors, when they sold the house, they might have done work back there to try to do the very same thing that she's complaining about, trying to manage that water that's just sheet flowing across the surface. So, I don't know, we do look at all that kind of thing when we're studying a development plan. Obviously, this is not even our jurisdiction until tonight.
So if it's developed, engineers would be contracted to, take a look at that.
Absolutely.
Decide on what is the best remedy to mitigate that.
Right, and I think, knowing this concern, I mean, I think we'll be aware of that. If something comes forward, we can address that. You all will be here, and we'll all be here as well.
Thank you. This is still a public hearing for rezoning. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Miss Jan Peterson, she lives right across the street from Miss Spencer. And she emailed me this, and she asked me to read it. Her fiance is an architect with over 30 years of experience, and his name is David Conklin. And I have his number if you want to. She lives at 3469 Smithfield Drive Northeast. It's in the brick house on the corner. It used to be the fire chief's house many years ago. His widow currently lives behind that brick house, and that's Miss Peavy, and you have already received and heard her concerns. And just to reiterate that, Ms. Peterson is also concerned about the noise, because right now there's a lot of semi-trucks that they drop off their trailer or change hookups or something like that. I know back at Christmas time, there was UPS. Charcy said there was a UPS, I guess the trailer there, and then there was also police there. Didn't know, if it was a bomb or something that was stolen, who knows? So they are concerned with all of the tractor trailer. Just like I said, they're both there for the most part of the day. Miss Peavy's there all day long. The noise, is the one resolved properly with the mass, either with earth beams or barriers of some sort, like along the interstate highway. We already have dealt with the unwanted noise from them loading and unloading things from semi-trailers on the old stockyard side next door. Obviously, it would be best not to have access directly off of Highway 16 and instead have access off the new road that could potentially be built behind Tri-City, just to save everybody, that not only sound, but also the traffic problem as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Love to hear from you. Regarding the public hearing for zoning of 122 acres.
Move request to public hearing.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Bill. Second, Mr. Fulbright. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion has carried. Now we'll move to item 18, which is ordinance 6-21. Mr. Vaughn?
Thank you, Mayor. You have this in your packet. We've also provided Dias a motion to support the zoning or a motion to deny the zoning as kind of draft language for your meeting if you need. And it would be, the whole thing would be rezoned to M1, general manufacturing.
You have a contingency statement on here. You have a contingency statement on here, does that need to be read as well?
Consistency statement?
Consistency statement.
You don't need to read that, just the motion, I believe. I might have just put it there by accident.
Oh, okay.
I might have worked myself out.
And how does this match up with the land development plan?
The land development plan, fast forward this again, I beg your pardon. Here it is. You can see the area, this is the Jobel site, if you will. And you can see the area in front is red, and you know, typically in a planning, master plan kind of document, anything red is a, kind of a mixed commercial use. The blue would be institutional, and then the kind of other colors in our code kind of represents residential of different types. So it could be apartments or other single-family uses is how that's denoted right through there. So it needs to be adjusted. If the plan is, if this rezoning request is approved, it does adjust the master this plan.
So if council wants to maintain the portion up front, it's already MX and, R9, R9A, the state, that would just be left as along, right? But how do you do that if you combine both into 122 acres?
In other words, not change the Bell Fox portion.
If that's the desire of the council.
That's the desire of the council.
If they want to leave the Bell Fox alone, but then the portion in behind, take that up, is that possible?
You could, the way you read the approval, you would adjust the language to not include that Bell Fox part, for example, or not include the Conley Fox part, for example, if you chose to do that.
And the Bell Fox is the one up close to the road?
Yes, that's the one that we kind of familiarize ourselves with being the old Joe Bell site. One more, there we go. It's this piece here, that is actually Joe Bell site, and then this is the Conley Fox. The stream runs right through the middle here, kind of cuts down like that.
How much of that property, you recall, is affected by the floodplain?
I don't have all those numbers. I do know for the Conley Fox, the open space zoning for Conley Fox is 11 acres out of the 39 acres, about 25%. Yeah, it could, probably about the same on the.
About the same on
Okay.
If you set that at MX, that could be a shopping center or anything.
Yeah, shopping center, restaurants, any variety of uses. And we do, the MX is a traditional neighborhood type of a zoning category, so we do focus on the frontage, pedestrian orientation, sidewalk connection, everything like, imagine like a building with Conover Station, some of those buildings there, that's the style that we would get there. If
It's got retail,
It'd be retail.
residential,
That's right. And one also allows.
We can have the same thing on the one.
So it would be any difference then?
Well, it doesn't have the standards, the same standards that MX has. But MX is one of your
But we could put them in, conditions.
industries. Well, I just think we're less likely to be attracting or advertising for a kind of a mixed use, if it's M1, period. We're changing the character of that area with that
Well,
proposal.
we've got the mixed use, already to the, going back into town already.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, how much of it's gonna? We got the other side of the road, the other corner, there's more about also.
Yeah,
That's gonna be more.
Yeah.
That's gonna be more mixed use.
we've got we've got an important corridor for the city of Conroe that is mostly undeveloped at this time. Really, the only thing we have going right now is the Walmart, everything else is available. So, I guess, we've had good zoning on that piece of land for a long time. It just hasn't attracted that level of development thus far. So, I think, maybe it was the ownership or whatever, they weren't ready yet or something, until this date. So I know we're responding to changing conditions all the time, and this is this moment for this request.
I move we approve ordinance 621.
Mr. Eckert, you will read that top paragraph.
I got this one, so. I move to approve the rezone request Art 29 standalone exhibit A map. County zoning, single family, residential R20, mixed use units, neighborhood center density, neighborhood residential and R, open space density. The city of Conroe, M1, and the adjustment to the land development manufacturing because conditions have changed and opportunities for manufacturing have expanded. And also find that the request is reasonable and is in the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
Because, now, do I need to read the consistency?
Yeah. You want to read the consistency statement?
I do.
No, you do not.
You do
That's
not.
the motion. Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Do I have a second, Mr. Bills? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Aye. And I want to mention that I am not against growth by any means. I do agree. I have, my biggest concern, quite frankly, is the close proximity to residential that's already out there. Plus it's inconsistent with land use plan. But the motion does carry. I think,
Mayor, members of council, we passed the 3 hour mark. I'd like to ask y'all for permission for a recess. Everybody get a chance to visit the restroom and we can clear the hall for guests.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you very much. We need to, can we
If
continue?
you just say reconvene, just say 5 minutes.
5 minutes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I don't think so.
What a first day.
I'm not, I just did. I don't know what you just said. Hopefully it just must have. No, I don't know how it goes. I think that's how much we have available. Alan, staff meeting at 9 o'clock, we're all coming in late.
Yeah, let's move that Senate meeting back.
Yeah, it's going to be, it'll be 9, but at least you could just leave it a little bit.
I'm gonna crawl up under this desk. Just like, bye.
I couldn't stop fidgeting. Like, once I started, my ears started bothering me from that mask.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to go change my mask.
And you did well, though. I noticed that.
I love them.
I want a Big Mac, and it's like, I can't even think about eating because all I can think about is I can bed in these months with this backyard, with this chicken. Heck yeah. That's why I'm scrambling during the middle of the meeting trying to change staff. Donald's like, I'll be up at 5:30 regardless. Shoot.
So did she say no?
No, he said that's fine. So it's gonna be not, it's literally we're all coming in late.
Well, we're coming in an hour late.
Yeah.
Come right before.
Yeah. Please plan to see me walking in this door with my bag still in tow. Oh my God, there's still so much to do.
Yeah.
You're gonna what? Run upstairs. Wait. Goodness gracious.
We were just talking about, how many,
Yeah.
not like what we did.
I'm not working, we're gonna be here.
I'll beat you down.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't plan to go get a fight.
That's about,
As
long as I make it.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
I know that. I'll walk you, but I
They're scared to go that way, so I might.
So, I'm gonna wait to stand up for him, and then I'm gonna.
That young lady can do
We're lucky we have it. Hey, guys, we do get water in our yard, no, nothing bad.
I'm down here. I never have one in my life.
Yeah. And that's not simple water. Yeah, what's there is no doubt about that. She has to do a presentation. There are a lot of actions. No, I expect somebody to stop and finance it. And they get their input. And then if somebody goes it should. I mean, a lot of this is people not paying attention. But yeah, just tell you how many times we've looked out there, we've had to come around, go down County Road.
First off, council, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your patience, hanging in here. We do have a number of items left that we want to take care of. The first, item 19, one is very important to all of us, and that's, retirement for, Mr. Clark. And, so I'd like to, let you in front of the, document, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got things for now? Then go on.
Who said that?
You better have it.
Who said that about overtime?
Oh, you know.
Not me.
I hear you.
That's Fulbright.
You get the same amount of
Yep.
But nothing, just all thanks to, Jimmy, hard to say, it's just, it's emotional. But we all think a little bit. It's amazing to me, and I'll just throw this out here, a lot of times citizens call me and they're just raking me over the coals about something. And I'll say, well, I tell you what, have you talked to Mr. Clark? And next thing I know, yeah, I talked to him, they're fine, I went out there, yeah, everything's fine. He just has this calming voice, a rock steady demeanor. And it's not, no, you can't do something, it's how can we both accomplish what we want to accomplish, and everybody comes out on top. And that's a very unique gift, and I do call it a gift. We go to church together, both brothers in Christ. I take the world to him, Sandy, and but they need me personally and to our church. And we do want to celebrate and celebrate properly, and celebrate appropriate time. And I know we're going to do that later on this year. I'm just planning on that. But in the meantime, we've got a proclamation we'd like to read to you. And I think it has 3 chapters to it. But your career is so long. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. But that's okay. We're gonna read it. Oh, no. Colleagues a lot better than me, that's why he's gonna read this for you.
You know, the way we do things, we refer to it as the Conover way. Conover way starts with this guy right here.
Definition of it.
Resolution 1-21, Certificate of Appreciation, Jimmy A. Clark, 47 years of service. Whereas Jimmy A. Clark has served the city of Conover for 37 years, beginning as Assistant Public Works Director, 35 years as Public Works Director, and served as the city's Disaster Recovery Coordinator for multiple declared emergencies. And he began his career in public service with the town of Valdez as Street Superintendent for 6.5 years. Then to the town of Longview as Public Works Director for 1.5 years, then Town Manager for 2 years. And his years of service have been characterized by a zealous commitment to improve the community, the public he has served, earning an associate degree in Management Communications from Caldwell Community College, and certificates from the University of North Carolina School of Government at Chapel Hill, including Small Town Administrators course and Municipal Administration. And he is a 30-year member of the North Carolina American Public Works Association and American Water Works Association, where he served as treasurer and instructor for customer service to municipalities and utilities across the state. And he served as coordinator for regional and countywide efforts on the Technical Advisors Committee, helping to determine how utilities should be distributed throughout the country, landfill issues, countywide water and sewer ordinances, and the regional compost facility, partnering with the cities of Newton, Hickory, and Claremont for water and sewer services, Piedmont Wagon, and its transition into the Greenway Transit Authority. I'm only halfway done. And Mr. Clark has oversaw the construction of many public works and utilities projects, including the renovations and upgrades to Conifer's downtown in 1985 and 2017, relocating and expanding the Public Works facility, 4th Street Southwest, rebuilding the northeast and southeast sewer treatment plants, the Oxford water tank, multi-jurisdictional park, 2 bridges, and numerous parks. And he is known for creating a culture of innovation amongst his staff, leading to the first community in North Carolina to deploy automated meter reading, the first in the county to implement rollout sanitation containers, curbside recycling, and later rollout recycling. Other innovations include the swap loader program, year-round leaf collection, street brining, and advanced snow removal system. USA Today noted that Conifer had more snow removal equipment than the city of Atlanta. And he was noted as a mentor to other public works employees across the state, making himself available to advise and consult in all aspects of the profession. Mr. Clark is a well-known problem solver, prides himself in customer service, and is a promoter of public works as a first responder. And Mr. Clark instituted the Conifer Public Works motto, "In the public works profession, praise must come from within. Your reward is the satisfaction of a job well done. Expect no applause and very little recognition. Although this statement is fact, you should not be discouraged as a public works employee. The rewards for the dedicated public service far outweigh the lack of public acclaim. Now therefore be it resolved, the Conifer City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Conifer, publicly commends Jimmy A. Clark for his 47 years of faithful service to the public works profession and 37 years of impeccable service as Public Works Director for the city of Conifer."
Amen.
Before you hear, really, thank you. We know that you have a long list of things that, you've been doing public works for all of us for all the years, now you're gonna be doing. You got a list, well, this will help you, accomplish that list, from our council and our staff. We appreciate your friendship, we appreciate your mentorship, and most of all, appreciate your leadership.
Thank you. Wow. It's a little harder than what I thought, maybe. Hard to believe. It's hard to believe that time flew so fast. One person I've always thought a lot of, because every time I run into him, he would say, I'd ask him, I'd say, "How you doing, Mr. Stein?" He'd say, "Blessed." And that's pretty much where I am today, blessed. I look at the people in this room, and everybody in this room means something to me. Thank you, Scott, for sitting around. God, blessed me by bringing me here. I wrote that, in my resignation. Why he did it, I have no clue. But he did, and he let me find a job that you stay long enough to raise my wonderful family and help my wife support that family. That's probably all I need to say, because what else can you really ask for, right? But he not only gave me a job, to help me do that, he gave me a job that I've enjoyed and great group of people. you know, to work with. I've had a great staff. I've been blessed by city council members and mayors along the way, you know, that have had my back and have worked with me, you know, from day one. And you can't really put a price tag on it. You can't put a value on that. That's something that you're just very fortunate and blessed if it happens. I've been around so long that I've had council members' grandpas, you know, that Bruce, me and him were young when I first started. I was young when I first started. But, you know, been around a long time. But the good thing is, you know, we built a team. We worked the last year and a half, you know, like we talked about, to get the team where we need it to be. And I'll make this very short, I'm about done. These guys sitting here, they're ready. Trust me, they're ready. Mr. Jones, you know him well, he's got you covered. Mr. Bradshaw, that was here earlier, he's got you covered. Mr. Coffs, stepping into some, you know, some good shoes. They know what they're doing. Just take care of them. You have their back, they'll have yours. And God bless all of you. Thank you so much.
You can come back all the time.
Does council want to say anything?
Hey, buddy.
Enjoy.
Council, you might want to say anything?
I'd like for Cindy to say something. I mean, how is he really?
He's really about
The real deal.
the real deal.
Y'all just keep walking my route. I'll be happy.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jimmy. I just watch out for the fluff.
And to the rest of the staff here and Commissioner Clark, this is not the end of the celebration, this is just the beginning. We did have an event planned for the middle of this month, but COVID happens, right? And so we're going to move that and hopefully have an event this summer when things calm down, we can all get together and celebrate and socialize the way we probably should. And council has given me a lot of good ideas, and we have a lot of ways we want to recognize your service. And so that will continue, and we'll have to be part of it.
I appreciate that. It's not necessary. I mean, this is, you know, fantastic. I appreciate that.
We're gonna
My family, my work family, I've told you that a long time.
We're gonna do it right. And every day I learn something from Jimmy. That's probably the best thing about this. And I should have worked in the resolution, but I couldn't find a way to work it and make it fit on the page. But, the one thing that, and there's a lot of things you can say about me, but the one thing you can say is always was adapting. And I watched that happen to a lot of folks that as they get older, especially me, I don't know what happens. But they become these old curmudgeons, right? And it becomes like an old bear.
Don't look at me.
Their teeth get sore, they can't fight like they used to, and they just get angry, right? Jimmy never did that. He got better with age every time, and he always found a better way to teach us.
Very good.
Yeah. If you want, you know, just like Stein, you know, Stein is one of those few people, like Jerome Bullitt, a few others that we can name that got better with age. And we all should endeavor to do that. And be blessed to be able to do that. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jimmy.
We're going for item number 4.
I may be late.
We may not have a February.
The public. You said
Well, that sounds like Wally.
Every time it's moved up, it's
Okay, guys.
Yep.
Thank you all for that. Item 20 is 7-21, orders, amendment, Ms. Lee. Good evening again.
Ordinance 721, amendment 2020-21 budget ordinance by appropriating $19,204 general fund balance for the purpose of paying out accrued vacation pay to a retiring employee, as well as the retirement gifts from the city of Conover.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.
Did you say 19,204, 19,020?
Well, let's see, I said 204, did I say it wrong?
It's 024 is written down.
Yeah.
Okay, when I typed this up, I transposed.
Okay, that motion.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Second, Mr. Bill, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Ordinance 8-21, Ms. Lee.
Ordinance 821, amends 2020-21 budget ordinance to adjust salaries and wages with the use of salary savings from the retiring public works director, along with savings from vacant positions within the public works departments today, the public works departments being all the public works departments, to implement the public works succession plan and to create an emergency management director position in administration. And I'd like to say, on this emergency management director position that we're looking at, I have found that since COVID came along and all of the federal money, FEMA money, it's really been, and I've only worked on one of the FEMA grants and the CARES Act, and, federal government doesn't like to give their money away without asking for a lot in return. Lots and lots of reporting. And, in the situation of the $9 million that we'll be getting to later on tonight, that one is going to be a lot of tracking required with that one. Monthly reporting and daily tracking, paperwork and site work. So, this would be a very important position for us to have.
Will this employee be under you?
I believe that this employee will be under, Mr. Duncan.
It says administration.
Administration is where we put it, so they have the authority to work in all departments.
Now, I mean, I'm over finance, so.
Okay, so be under you.
Probably under
Yeah.
Sean, yes.
This young man's already working on, grants for the fire department and, the wastewater, utility, and, another planning grant for the city as a whole, so he'll be spread across everybody.
Donald, to go back kind of to what some of the concerns that we brought up earlier about cleaning up the creeks. Would this position be helpful in, trying to obtain some kind of funding mechanism for
So
that?
yes, what we would do is look for, we have to have a plan, just like you saw with the ADA plan, and then you can go after funding. So the first thing we would do is put together an emergency plan, not response, but mitigation. And we have a great response team here, I put them up against anybody.
Right.
But it's the mitigation where we're landing.
Yeah.
And so he would be focused on many things, including moving pump stations out of the floodplain, or getting the proper equipment or additional equipment for the fire service. Whatever we need in mitigation and response, we would put him in charge of. And as Ms. Sleepy so eloquently put, you already got a lot of federal money that requires a lot of time. And this young man's been assisting her with that, and so he will continue that.
Thank you for that, clarification there. Appreciate it, Ms. Lee. Any questions, Ms. Sleepy or Mr. Duncan regarding, what the plan, what the proposed plan is here? If not, I would have a motion.
If we approve ordinance 8-21.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bill, all in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion has carried. Item 22 is appointment of voting delegates to North Carolina municipalities. I'd like to nominate, and he has agreed, Mayor Pro Tem Kyle Hayden as our voting delegate, so I'll make that motion. Somebody like to second? Second, everybody else, all in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 23 is an agreement between the city of Conover and Oxford Fire Department. Chief, good evening, sir. Appreciate your patience tonight.
It's just about good night.
By the way, thank you for the.
Good morning.
Thank you for,
I got the grill hurting up out here, so I have to get done quick.
all right.
Before tonight, I have an agreement between the city of Conover and Oxford Fire Department. And this will provide a mutual aid agreement with Oxford for the 54 parcels that's shown on the map for the Strawberry Fields development. When Oxford was getting their rating redone, one of the things that was discovered was they got a good, some of their portion of their district is outside their 5 miles. And so this portion right here is well outside, some of it's right at 6 miles from their station and 1.2 miles from ours. And so by doing an agreement, we would be responding to these 54 parcels, and then their folks, they can, instead of a 10 insurance rating, then they'll get a 4, which that's what Oxford is currently under rating.
Gotcha, makes sense. Anything in the agreement that you didn't like as we negotiated?
Nope, had Monroe look at it, we talked, and Monroe's good with it, and I'm good with it as is.
If you're good with it?
We do have an agreement.
Why is the, looks like there's a few houses in there that's not in, why is that? On,
Because they're within their 5
Jerry
miles.
Shaft and Redberry Lane and Berry Cap Drive.
They're within their 5 mile district. Only the parcels that is outside their 5 miles
That can't be.
is what's shown in yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce, it's miles traveled, not.
Yeah, it's not a circle, it's road miles.
Gotcha.
It's not a radius circle that you draw from Oxford Fire Department, it's road miles from their fire department.
I know where you go in, yeah. Yeah, they cover it, but they gotta be going right by these, to cover these.
This is within the 5 miles, this is probably not. 5 miles from that right here.
That's great. Yeah, the parcels that's not in the deep yellow is within their 5 miles, so they don't need to have a mutual aid agreement with us, it's the ones that's outside their 5 miles.
Council, we've had.
I didn't make the rule, I'm just, I agree, that makes sense.
I hear where Mr. Eric is
I
coming
know.
from. I mean, look at it on the map, what's that gonna look
Yeah.
like? That gonna look right.
I know exactly what he's saying.
I mean, they're way down here.
Yeah.
And we're right down here, and they gotta go, I mean, we have to go buy those to get to these other places, but we don't get to those.
Oh.
That's crazy.
Mr. Acker, you discovered the same thing that several homeowners insurance representatives called and brought up to the city and said, hey.
This
you guys
past
find-
summer, I've had 3 insurance companies call and raise saying about it. And I gave them 4 options.
Who's fire hydrants are those?
They're the city of Conroe fire hydrants,
That's what I
but
thought.
they maintain them.
They maintain them.
Yeah, Oxford Fire Department maintains them. They go out and paint them and service them, it's our water line that's there, it's the city of Conroe water line.
Okay. That's ridiculous.
Item 23.
I understand.
Contract. Any other questions?
We do have
I think that's a good point.
we have an existing contract already that's back from September the 5th, 2006, when we annexed the Tahoe Valley Assisted Living property there. We mutually had an agreement with Oxford then, which included Strawberry Fields, but the state wanted a new contract drawn up and worked to the Tahoe Valley Assisted Living off the contract. That contract is still good, and it won't go away, where they mutual aid with us there. But this is just,
We still get their person making it.
right, this just updated that contract to, take out the Tahoe Valley Assisted Living, so that the state has just all the Strawberry Fields for what they need.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna make a motion to approve this good contract.
There you go.
Have a second on that.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That's a very good point, Mr. Brown.
And then make the rules, it's gotta live by.
Item 24, ordinance 921, Ms. Lee.
Ordinance, 921, or I think I started to go to sleep there for a minute. Ordinance 921 amends 2020-21 budget ordinance account for an E.R. Carpenter Foundation grant in the amount of $39,000. These funds will be used to purchase, equipment for the fire department.
Go out to auction. Thank you. Any questions there, Ms. Lee? There, my part, I'll make a motion to approve. Thank you, Ms. Bullbright. Second, Mr. Bill, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Ms. Long, appreciate your patience tonight. You're up.
I love it, I'm batting fast.
You did a good job on that, so go for it.
Good evening, y'all. Thank y'all for having me tonight. Before you have the grant agreement for the community development block grant for the ours project, I have embarrassed to say we were not the first grant funded in the state of North Carolina. We were the second, but, I was shooting for one. But $850,000 was awarded to the city of Conover to be able to help do fabrics build a new facility in the MSC campus. And this is the grant agreement for that.
Great. Question for you, if they, don't fulfill their requirements, we've had issues before, clients, could have come back and said, are we covered on this?
We actually were, I've spoken to Monroe about it, and we will develop something up for it. The proposal we have in place is that we will not issue the money until they have created the jobs and we've documented them.
So the R agreement and Department of Commerce.
Well, no, it'll be just your agreement. The Department of Commerce says the money's here, but you're the gatekeeper for the funds.
We're the
You can't draw, we can't, the city will draw the money down. And you will do that at the request of the finance director, which I know, and the city manager. And so that can't be done until all the whatever stipulations we put in are met.
Okay. All right, perfect.
So it's 10 jobs, 7 of them are low to moderate income. What is low to moderate income? What's that range?
It's about 40, family of 4 is $44,000. One person's about 33. And so what it will happen, and some of the ones that they are going to hire are supposed to be new college graduates, so they didn't have any income prior year. So that, we verified it on that. So I anticipate there shouldn't be a problem with that, but we do monitor it. Not only do they have to create the 10 jobs, but they have to meet those guidelines or they don't qualify for it. The state does allow proportionate share. Say, for example, they only created 5 jobs and they get $85,000 per job. They could get 5 times $85,000. But that would be something that would be negotiated before they would get any capital.
That's 10 new jobs.
That's correct. They have 15 on hand, or they did at the time of the application.
Sounds good. Contract. Thank you, Mr. Hackman. Second on that? Second. Thanks, Mr. Kennedy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed to it? Motion has carried. Thank you, Ms. Long.
And I guess that was a contract to approve. Administrative contract for $49,500. The grant was for $850,000, and all administrative fees for council of government contract are paid from the grant.
Gotcha. And that's at 26, right? Yes. All right. Do we have a motion on that?
Make motion.
Thank you. All right. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed to that? Thank you.
Good night.
Now, I appreciate you hanging in there. Over there.
It was entertaining. Thank you.
Ms. Lindsay, ordinance 1021, please.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 1021 creates the new fabric PPE manufacturing facility economic development capital project ordinance for the purpose of using a CDBG-CV COVID grant in the amount of $850,000 to provide funds to new fabrics for the construction of the new PPE manufacturing facility that we just discussed.
Who was the gatekeeper here in the city? Would that be you, releasing that money?
Yes, we paid the bills. This is this would be a reimbursement grant. So basically, we pay the bills, and then we request reimbursement of the COG helps us with our reimbursement request. And,
You and Sherry were really the
Yes.
gatekeepers there.
right,
For that particular purpose.
Just like we did in every grant.
They can't get to the money without both the manager's signature and Vicky's signature.
Now I feel really good.
And then I have to fill out the form, so there's 3 of us.
Good
Yeah.
deal. That's awesome. Okay, perfect. And then, just one side question. Has Duke Fabrics, has he cut his contract already with,
So the next thing that will happen, for council's information, is they have to close on the purchase of the property. That would be with the development partner, and that would include us being able to see their purchase, their build to suit, which is it's a different term, it's not build to suit. I'm trying to remember that at least
And it's not lease, it's actually, it's a,
there's a different term that we don't normally use.
I was on the phone with them today, and we're in the process of trying to get all those things.
So we're waiting to see that contract from them and their developer, and we're waiting to close on the property. So that'll be the next 2 things that happen before any money.
And the environmental review has to be done, and that's just started, and that'll take about 30 to 45 days. And so we're still 2 or 3 months out before anything happens.
okay.
Yeah, engineering hasn't even begun yet. They've only done sketch, which is the storyboard that you see here is a sketch of different visions of what may happen there. So that's all as far as they've got. So there's a lot of work to do. I expect we'll have this back before council, maybe closing in March, maybe February if we're lucky. And then I would see,
Closing with him on the property.
yeah, he would have to buy.
Yeah, he's got to buy the property before he even starts.
Correct.
They got enough built on May,
I don't expect.
No.
That's what to say.
That's what he wanted, yeah.
No.
I don't expect to see.
But he didn't say what year.
Yeah. To Mr. Fulbrights' point, I don't expect to see engineering documents until probably May.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked. Until when?
Probably May, and it might be back before council in June, May. That's what I'll see. Yes.
That's great.
And all the jobs have to be created and everything done and paid out and everything by September 17th of 2023.
So y'all gonna work with them until they get it done regardless.
It's no different than Profile Products or, what's our food processing company?
Here, Foods.
Here, not here, but in Colorado.
Star
Snack.
Snack.
You know, we monitor very closely the industries, so we've got to stay right on top of them.
Good deal. Ordinance 1021.
We approve.
Thank you, man. Second. Second, Mr. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed that? Thank you. Item 28, contract, Mr.
Mayor, members of council, we have received the final contract after multiple drafts of the $9 million that we've been awarded to the North Carolina General Assembly via the U.S. Congress in the CARES Act. There's a very tight timeline on this. It was December 31st of last year. We got that extended. Thank you to the president signed that on December 27th. And we're in process now. You've seen updated plans, sketches, and so we should be putting this project out to bid very soon. The biggest thing that Monroe and I are now having to deal with is getting an appointment with their attorney to finalize the agreement of how the 2 buildings will function. And so I expect that to happen any minute. We'll get a notice of when we're going to meet with their attorney. And then we'll be running that parallel to the bid. We have our money secured, and thanks to your congressman and senator, you got $9 million.
Wow. Great news.
The only people who got more was Duke University to develop the vaccine. I thought it was pretty good.
Mr. White?
I stuck around just because I wanted to make a comment about the vision that it took among lots of people on this project and a lot of perseverance. And I just want you all to realize that you did a great thing. You've got some great leadership. You've done some great leadership, and I just wanted to make sure that you were great.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. It's had its bumps, I'll tell you that. Okay, we're starting to get the smooth there.
Yep.
So, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Contract, item 28.
Yes, Mayor and Vicky, if you authorized me to enter into this agreement, and Vicky and I will fill out the paperwork tomorrow, if she's away. And they would send us the money within 10 days, And then we would come back to council once we have a bid in hand and a contract with the contractor, you have to approve that as well. So that'll be your next thing you'll see from us. Will be the
So, contract based on your approval.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion to second on that? Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Second, Mr. Bill. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed to that? It did. Ordinance, 1121, Ms. Cliff.
Ordinance 1121 creates the MSC Phase 2 Expansion Capital Project Ordinance for the purpose of using coronavirus relief funds from the state of North Carolina in the amount of $9 million to be used to construct a 30,000 square foot purpose-built facility, a house testing lab, rapid prototyping, and a textile sourcing library. This ordinance also includes a clean room upfit for MSC Phase 1 and a pilot line to create product and to train a workforce for United States manufacturers PCBs.
Bill. Any questions on that? No. Everybody's kind of been deep in this thing for months.
Is there money in there to build a bridge?
Money in there to build a bridge.
There is for sidewalk, but not the bridge itself. The bridge, we actually put up a budget amendment of $140,000. That is a year and a half to go down, see, go on market. And then we let that fall in the fund balance, so you'll have to reappropriate that as soon as Mr. Jones has the final number from our GC. So that's money you had set aside. We didn't continue it, so let it fall in the fund balance. You just have to reappropriate it again and start that project.
By the way, that bridge, piece of trivia, just John to share with you. You want to share that?
Well, we kind of been keeping that secret, but if you would like to talk about it, he's gone. That was the bridge that was right out the house from where Mr. Parker was. He fished off that as a young man many times. We didn't know that until months later after it was already here on the property. And we found the state numbers off of it and called the state and they gave us the history of it. And it was just really kind of, as Judge Collier used to say, it's too coincidental to be a coincidence. It was really quite profound that it would be a piece of history in Mr. Clark's life. So my request to the council is when we finish it, is to dedicate it in honor of his service to the city.
So it's gonna cost $140,000 to finish that thing and put it up?
Maybe, it just depends, I haven't seen the final numbers yet. That's not the bridge, that's also the approaches, your sidewalks, all that stuff. You know, I mean, that's a pretty good deal when you look at what the pedestrian bridge cost at the community college or our traffic bridges that we built that were millions of dollars. So it's actually not quite bad at all. Basically, they're giving you the steel to replace it for free, and it's just you're paying for the man out.
We ought to have plenty of money because, $9 million, 30,000 square feet, is $300 a square foot. Surely God would be able to do it.
Well, that's part of that's $1.5 million.
Okay, and then the 7.25 is $240 a square feet.
Yeah. Your clean room upfit's quite a bit.
$1.2 million. Yeah, but still. I mean, I don't know who got the estimates, but we all have plenty of money.
Still,
It's gonna be $200 square foot. $140,000 on the bridge. Just don't tell anybody we're spending $140,000 on that bridge.
You better than that?
No.
Ordinance 1121.
Make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
Second.
Second, Mr. Kenrow. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Ordinance 1221, budget ordinance, Ms. Lee.
Ordinance 1221, enacting 2020-21 budget ordinance by appropriating $1,951 general fund balance in order to build the city's unemployment reserve up to what is required by the state. The city budgeted for this year $4,500, but the invoice that we received from Employment Security last week was $6,451. So this is to make up the difference.
Question?
Who made that mistake?
It wasn't a mistake. We never know at the time that we're doing budget. We never know at the time that we're doing budget, how much is gonna be drawn out of our reserves for unemployment insurance, of course. So we have to make an estimate and adjust accordingly.
Move we approve ordinance 12-20.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Second, Mr. Fulbright, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion has carried. On the committee reports, I'd just like to say, Mr. Duncan and all the staff, what you guys did for the young folks, the young at heart folks for Christmas was awesome. I know all of us got great comments, feedback on that. It's real special. And, well done.
I think you started something that will be continuing year in and year
Yeah,
out.
there's already been meetings about how we refine it and improve it.
yeah, you can forget about Christmas in the park now, they just want to Santa Claus.
Did we get any complaints of people that, for whatever reason, you didn't get to their street or what? I don't know, I can't imagine.
There was one street was missed on the first night, and it's because they doubled back and forgot, so they went down at the later night, and it happened to have a street full of kids. And then I think we had some screws that just didn't like Christmas at all, that was all we do. And we had maybe, I don't know, it numbered in the triple digits of compliments.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't
Gary, thank y'all, appreciate it.
Just where I see, because I was involved in it.
Yeah.
Ton of people saying thank you. Like, you see the kids running and they say Merry Christmas, but then you hear the parents saying thank you very much.
Yeah. Well done, well done.
It's awesome. You just see my neighbor kids screaming and hollering and jumping outside.
You see my wife, she came running out of the house like she's on fire.
Anybody else have anything before we go to the manager report? City manager report?
I have nothing other than say thank you. It went as good as could be expected. I appreciate your patience and your resiliency. Y'all don't get paid enough to listen to all that junk.
You bring breakfast?
You guys, I'll take you to breakfast. Waffle House is open. But I do.
You say the awful house.
Yeah, I sincerely appreciate it, I really do. It's, for Alan and the staff involved, it's been a real trial, and every day he's calling Scott or he's calling me or one of y'all and changes the deal. And so I'm glad we got through at least this much.
Well, just answer the phone tomorrow morning, I'm sure there's something out there.
Well, I mean, what we did tonight, pretty big deal.
It was.
Well, if I may make one comment, I've heard so many people complain about pre-existing conditions, and not want to change it. They're satisfied, they said leave it alone. They're
That's a good
getting
point.
flooded,
That's a good point.
traffic noise already, they don't want to change it. But everything's already pre-existing.
Don, that's probably the most profound thing I've ever heard you say.
Well,
I don't mean that.
I think that's a compliment.
That honestly is a very profound way to put it.
Well, I mean, the lady that bought the house, backyard's flooded. It didn't just happen 2 years ago.
Well, in the long run, she may end up getting a buffer down through there and all the water gone.
It would be better for her.
She said she's been trying to get hold of the Foxes for 3 or 4 years. I mean, when that property wasn't in the city, there's nothing we could have done. I mean, maybe we try now, we might have something that we can.
Well, I was sitting there thinking about, that's the high ground, right behind her house.
That's
And
what I thought
that's
so.
the good dirt. So that dirt's gonna get moved, and so that would take that liability away from her.
Yeah, when they start grading all that behind her, or when that happens, or if that happens, she ain't gonna get no water if what falls in her yard.
But now that it's annexed into the city,
Look out.
That's right.
I think that's with anything, yeah.
Sure.
Let's deal with that.
Yeah.
And when
Sure.
when and if the project comes, then they'll be back here, because it'll certainly be over 100,000 square feet.
Can you force something to get some help for these folks?
It's a natural buffer right now. I mean, it's a wooded lot. I don't think it's as good as it can get.
It comes to our floodplain, and then it goes down there, and then it goes on again. through Rock Barlow down to Consol. I mean, it's there, it's that whole creek.
I would honestly say that the best thing she could do is probably do a small ditch around her home, like most people do. I would guess that development's been there since the late fifties, early sixties.
Like, George Smith on that map in, 1968.
Okay, late sixties, that's all.
No, so those houses are there.
And that dirt is settled in there rather than, and so it's just over time, which happens to everybody. I mean, it's happened in my house.
I got a ditch on both sides of my house.
Bellevue and down Smithfield was there before Bellevue.
Right, but I looked at,
68 was the plan.
you guys know what I'm at, George Smith signed it.
I was saying the same thing.
Gavel.
Yeah, I take this out of the paper.